Mr. Chairman, we're live.
Okay, welcome everybody in the audience and those on YouTube. We are in the afternoon session of December 11th. Our next agenda item is not an action item. This is an update on our commissioner boards. And I have very little, but I'll go first. The first one is we met last week on the 911 committee. And I learned a great deal, kind of where we are on that. 911 is set up now, which is dispatch, to be able to find, if you call on a cell phone or a landline, they can actually Google you and figure out where you are in Valley County. The issue is that there's not a lot of ways they can talk to you, converse with you. And what the enhanced 911 does is allow videos so that if you're lost or you're somewhere you don't know where you are and you can video a mountain or you can video a landscape, they can figure out where you are. The other issue with 911 is that a lot of our physical assets, not the radios, not the dispatch itself, but a lot of the other stuff is getting really outdated. So enhanced 911 is basically an upgrade in equipment and the things that that equipment can do. We're probably 2 years out. I don't think it's going to be too much money because there's a lot of grants available for upgrades and that kind of stuff. But the goal is to get everything on GIS and really accurate. I mean, it's down to the inch on GIS. And so Kara was there at the meeting, Jeremy was there, myself and Kelly and a gal from the state. And the first thing they do is they do the county boundaries. And everybody has to look at those and make sure that those are actually where they are. And then they go in and they start doing the cities next. And then after the cities, then they do fire districts and they do EMS districts. And everything is chiseled right down to the square inch so that everybody knows where everybody is on the GIS layer. And there's still a lot of work to do on that. Because as you know, if you get on GIS, the road's here, but the red line's over here. And so we've got to figure out how to make sure everything is squared up. And Kara's going to do that. That's part of her job.
Do they have the ability to say, I'm lost? I'm just lucky enough to get out. They have the ability to look at your phone and figure out where you're at and tell you just keep your butt there. We'll send somebody to come find you.
They have the ability to get close, but not exact because the GIS layer is not exact yet. So that's the first goal. And the guy from the state kind of explained that to us, is that if you're in a domestic violence situation and you text 911, but you can't talk,
Sure.
then you can hide the phone somewhere and supposedly they can kind of figure out kind of down to where you are. But if the address system hasn't been set up correctly, there's no addresses on the residence, or if it's somewhere in this block, it's not exact enough yet. And that's what enhanced 911 does, is it gets it all, brings it down so it's all correct data.
I mean, that'd help out so much with the, sheriffs or the rescue people, be able to.
Well, and part of that issue is because we're so much Forest Service, we have to get the Forest Service involved with their GIS and use their data to fold in with our GIS data, and everything's got to talk and get along and work together. And so you've got all these different GIS organizations and trying to get them all to speak the same language is what the goal of Enhanced 911 is to get everybody on the same page. So that's, like I said, it's real prelim, and it's going to be a couple of years out before you start seeing some cost, I think, involved in that. Maybe by the end of next year, but we'll see. LAPC is coming up, I think, right after Christmas. And that's local emergency planning committee. Juan's more in charge of that. How you handle mass casualties and all that kind of stuff is coming. We haven't had that meeting since June. I don't know when the last time we had that meeting was. And then the only other thing I have to report on is the health district. As I told you guys last week, we've had some personnel issues. Some of our past workers have gone to the Human Rights Commission and filed some claims, some tort claims, and we found out this week that they've all been dropped. Actually, they didn't get dropped. The council basically read the evidence to say you don't have enough to
Even
warrant any
present.
kind of going any further here. So I think that problem is gonna eventually go away, but we're gonna have a meeting this Friday in Boise, which I'll be at, and, kind of get caught up on that. They are getting slammed with more refugee stuff coming in. Of course, there's a lot of refugees. They haven't really hit Idaho very hard, but they're coming.
Hmm.
There's what, 2 million now, 3 million has come across the border. Sooner or later, we're gonna start seeing folks we don't know in Idaho. So they set up all that process where they make sure they're vaccinated, they're tested with HIV. If they are an HIV or an STD, they get them on a treatment plan, and we pay all that,
Oh, sure we do.
us and Medicare. And homelessness is another issue that they work on all the time. And it's a good board. It's a cool board. I really enjoy it. But that's really about all I got.
What's
Did you
happened
make
to the senior center? You took up the
Oh,
contract up there or something?
yeah, we got the lease signed with Calvary Church Cascade, I think it's called. And they're in. They had their first service last week, I believe. They're really happy about it. They are going to go in and paint the inside. They've done a lot of cleaning up and getting rid of some old food and some old stuff that's been in the closets. They did ask if they could put in some more plugins, and I said you need to get a hold of Scott Klingon and do that through him. Those kind of big remodels, and so far it's a go. Although yesterday I got an email that they have changed their name a little bit, and it's a different contact person. And so I text them back, we need to have the liability certificate in that person's name. As soon as you get that to us, bring it to me, and then I'll get it to Okie and Doug, and they can rewrite that lease, just adding on a new contact name.
These established where they have 501c3.
And I think that's all done.
That's already done.
Yeah, they have articles of incorporation, all that stuff has been done, but we're still kind of waiting for the liability policy. Make sure that's solid. But that's a go.
Did you
Let's see
make it
how they
to
work
the
out.
Soil and Water District meeting?
No, I've been reading the minutes on that though. I found that it's better not to be there for that whole thing, because pretty soon you're sucked into that vortex of doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing this because it's going to bias me. You know what I'm saying? So I've just, Cinda's been going, she's been representing the county, and I think, you know, a while back we had the discussion about we want your guys' input on soil and water issues, but not density, not layout of roads, or that's not your purview. So please don't comment on that.
Sure.
But soil, water, wastewater, anything that could affect the reservoirs, we want your input on, and they're concentrating more and more on that. There's a big discussion about what's the issue with McCall Sewer, and there's a bunch of people watching that one very close and working behind the scenes on some of that stuff. So
I saw where they're, read that right, they were doing a levy for their water.
yeah, 13 million.
Yeah.
That's the old water lines down through the old part of town. And the old sewer pipes are all in the older part of town, which is the original McCall sewer. So when they combine with Payette sewer, Payette's not having to go back and reduce some stuff interior. There's gonna have to fix that issue.
Sure. That's gonna be a big.
They have more water leaking in than they have sewer in the system. And yeah, I don't know if you remember, the
That's
old,
bad.
they called it Victrolic pipes. They were like a compressed, really super hard kind of a cardboard pipe that they used to make 100 years ago. And they were using 2-foot chunks with a bell on them. And you stuck them together, and that's how they did. So all those Victrolic pipes over the years, they break. They're like clay. They kind of,
Oh, sure.
and they've dissolved and broke, and trees have grown into them, and now they have so much infiltration of stormwater that they have more water than they have sewer that they have to deal with.
Oh my goodness.
So they got to go and replace all those old pipes, and that's clear to the house, each house, everything. So it's a lot.
So, next ones I show were the IAC committees. Did you guys get signed up for the IAC committees? Are you still on transportation?
I thought it was.
So So transportation, I had you on transportation and all hazard mitigation. What's all hazard mitigation?
It's not all hazard. There's another fund, Natural Resource Litigation Fund. I've been on that one for a long time, and that's a group of public lands counties that we put money together to fight different natural resource issues. Like maybe it's the Forest Service travel management plans, or it's what was the one we had here a couple of years ago where I felt like this would have been one for
I think maybe that's the one I'm on now. You're on a different
NLRF,
one.
Natural Resource Litigation Fund, NRLF.
Okay.
And it's more like a subcommittee, Sherry. It's not a whole bunch of folks. I think there's like 5 or 6 of us on it.
Does it show me being on anything?
I don't have you down for anything, so I don't know what it was you signed up for.
I don't remember either.
Will you reach out to Kristen Cundiff and ask where you're on so we can just get it on here?
Yeah.
And then road advisory is not meeting, correct? Al?
No, Paul sent out a deal here last week. Do you guys want to get together? And nobody said, no, we don't think we need to get together. That's where we are now. However, I'm going to push that we try and get together next spring and just kind of keep connections there with those guys.
Is that the bunch that's over been pushing Jeff?
Well, they had some things that what they wanted to see in the road department, like the inventory system. And they know that we're having a problem filling that position, getting that done, but there was a couple other things that Jeff's already instituted. The GPS monitors on the equipment.
Remember
That
those?
one, you know, yeah, go ahead and do it. And they came in and it didn't work. That was from Verizon. And so that's one of the things I want to ask Caterpillar tomorrow is, does Caterpillar have their own GIS units that we can put in these machines that won't void the warranty and won't mess up anything in that machine, and see if we can't do something different there and see if there's an option. I know they do.
You'd think it would just be an add-on, something you just stick them.
I know in farm equipment, almost every farm equipment now has GPS in it.
Is Jeremy in that meeting tomorrow? You may ask him
No,
about that system. Is Jeff's committed to Verizon again to have that done?
well, it was kind of one of those things where Verizon was expecting our mechanics to say, what's wrong, what is it, diagnose it. And our guys said, we don't know anything about this.
Well,
We don't know what's wrong with it. It just doesn't work.
Jeremy was just waiting for a list. They didn't really need to diagnose it. He just needed something that says, when I turn it on, this happens, or, you know, what the flash code is, you know, what that
Their
code is, so
code.
he can, get it back to Verizon.
And I don't even know if our mechanics have those machines to get the flash code. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question. But I think that was sold not really well to us. We didn't understand that we have to diagnose our own issues and then send it to them. And then if there's enough of it, they'll send a guy up. The last I knew, their technician had to come up from California to do this. It's like, well, why did we buy this knowing we didn't have any local service?
Well, it's free to us for them
It
to
was
come do
free
it.
at the
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Most of these mechanics nowadays, I take mine into Alpine Motors or whatever, and they just plug their monitor in and tell me what the air code is, all the sensors out and blah, blah, blah. It seemed like we would have the same stuff on our graders, on
Well, the same
newer
thing
equipment, I should
with
say.
Peterbilt trucks. We have a lot of Peterbilt trucks. Do you guys put in GPS monitors? So is this something we need to put in the bid that you guys put in this machine for us and set up our own system? Really, I think that's what we should do, but Jeff would like to see it done.
Oh, yeah,
So
you
he
can
can
track.
monitor real time where these guys are.
Sure.
And I think he just has to give that information to Jeremy. I mean, the system's there, but get an update.
I'll ask Jeremy about it and see.
It looks like it's
I think it's all there, but
it's an add-on piece that you put in the vehicle. It doesn't seem like it'd be coming from Peterbilt or from Cat. Seemed
Well,
like
see, our
that's-
problem was they started putting these Verizons in the graders and they voided the warranty. And they do that.
I don't see how,
So, okay, so can we buy a grader with it already installed and it's still under warranty? That scared the mechanics.
well, sure.
Jeff and Jeremy need to work that out. There's a
I know,
final answer to that.
we'll see how that goes.
Okay, and mine, Economic Development Council is meeting next week to finalize the 2024 work plan. Part of that work plan is the county's conversation around infrastructure, getting regional conversations going on development and growth. So once we get through next week, I will get a finalized work plan, if you will, and shoot it out to you guys to see if you're in agreement with what those regional conversations should be about. We've got a lot of information that we're discussing and talking through.
Is there anything in there about geriatric care, long-term for elderly? Because if we have that many folks up here that are retiring, we're gonna have to start dealing with some of that.
I agree with that 100%.
Like others?
Yeah, we resemble that a bit. I can't remember exactly what I put in there, but, well, I will find that and send out. Cindy and I had sat down and talked about, I don't know, 12 to 15 different conversations, but we'd like to have them, the work group itself, get together on the first meeting and say, hey, this is what we would like to see as part of this plan. So it's not just being set by the county, that all the cities are involved and engaged too. So that's going to be next week, and I'll have more information after that. The Housing Trust will meet again next week. We have really been focused on bringing everything up to speed as far as all the financials, auditing, reporting. That kind of got away from that group in the last 3 years. And it's been a little bit of a struggle, I'm not going to lie, to get everything up to speed. But we're using an accountant that I totally trust, and we're using Zweigart and Associates to do all the audits. So by the end of the year, our goal is to have everything up to speed and meeting all of the IHFA standards again. So working through that,
Do you know what Jason's gonna charge you for the audit?
don't.
That can be kind of like an attorney.
Yeah.
You don't know what you get until surprise.
Well, and the problem is that they haven't done it for 3 years, which is
Oh.
against policy. And so he had to go back a minute. So it's going to cost some money,
Oh.
but it's key and critical to working with IHFA in the future. And then we've got a board in place, which now is represented by all of the communities, and they will be vibrant enough to be able to move this thing forward and keep everything up to speed.
But
Who'd
as
you
far
get from
as-
Cascade?
Um,
Mayor Judy?
No, Judy's not on it. Well, she sits in from time to time. I'm trying to think who's from Cascade. Maybe I misspoke. Sarah Porter just went on from Donley. Who's on it from Cascade? Oh, Johnny Hauer.
Oh,
He's
okay,
still on it.
okay.
So now
And-
building the building, what's the status on it again?
I need to reach out to Cody Draper. He was supposed to have had a foundation in by now, so that they were framing on it all winter. So I'll reach out to Cody and give you guys an update on that. I haven't heard. He got behind, I think, with the city on getting everything approved, but he's supposed to be building on it over the winter, so I'll touch base with him. Just to let you guys know, the PILT and SRS conversation. So Manchin's office is coming in this week on the 14th and doing markups on SRS conversations. He is trying to get, before he leaves Congress next year, he is trying to get something that is a stable funding structure going forward. So we're gonna have a lot more conversations in the next 3 months on long-term PILT and SRS. Both the groups that work on that, I've been meeting with both of those. It looks favorable right now to having that.
It was long-term.
It's reallocated every year. It's one that we normally don't have to fight for, but it does not have a stable funding. At any
Okay.
moment in time, they could just say, no more.
One of the ideas with Senator Crapo and Senator Wyden, a few years back now, was to put away, I think it was 9 billion into a trust and then take the interest off that to fund Bill. And I don't know where that went. Didn't happen though.
They're still trying to get that done.
I think it was 9 billion.
Right now with so much conflict back there, they
Yeah.
don't- you know, I mean, if we get approved for 3 years at a time right now, it's probably a good thing.
You know,
And they're trying to work on that. So that's still ongoing.
And SRS same way.
Same way, yeah. Pretty much, I mean, all of the meetings that we had this year, all of them were very favorable to making sure SRS gets approved at the same funding level we got last year, which was 1.8 million. And then we kept, I think, 1.2 of that. So that still sounds favorable. That's what we're counting on moving forward for the road department.
it was 1.2 or 1.6.
I think we kept 1.2. Is that right, Doug? That's what's in the back of my mind. And then,
No, I think you're right.
on the intergovernmental meetings, they will start again as soon as the legislature kicks in, so I'll be going down every week during the legislative session to Boise. They want as many as, well, I think it's every other week. And then every week, there'll either be a Zoom or an in-person meeting. The top 5, I think I already told you what those were for this year. But also, those meetings that I was at last week, there was a large conversation around endowment lands. And why doesn't the state start buying endowment lands out of the endowment? So that the endowment can go and do whatever they want with those funds, but we secure our open spaces. So we'll see if that gains any traction this year. I was very excited to hear that.
I mean, if the state buys land and pushes it over into the endowment lands.
No, they'll take and buy the endowment land so that it's not controlled by the state charter. Right now, there's specific requirements around those endowment lands
Right.
and what you can and cannot do and how much money you have to make off of them. So instead of doing that, the state could buy it and say, make it a part of Ponderosa State Park. So the state would have more control and they wouldn't be under the constitutional requirements of the endowment.
But don't they have to change the Constitution to do that?
The state can buy them. The endowment lands are the only thing that's under the Constitution.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Kinda. So it's set aside by the Constitution of the state.
Correct.
State can go in and purchase them, even though the state
With general funds,
legally already owns them.
there's 2 separate controlling interests. The endowment lands is actually overseen by the endowment board and actually held totally separate from state funds in an endowment trust. So it's managed totally separate from state ground. And
I
they're
don't
trying to
know
figure out.
if you can sell endowment lands. I think you can trade them though. Like if you want to trade a 40 of endowment land to anybody else, a private landowner, you can sometimes do that. But it's an appraisal, it's quite a large process.
Interesting.
Larger conversations are happening out there, which is good.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we projected 1.2 million, but if you recall, we only received $1,073,469 in SRS last fiscal year.
So was there a
I never did
holdback?
get a good reason,
There must have
on
been a
that.
10% or 5% holdback or something, huh?
and there wasn't supposed to be. I actually asked.
There's
And I don't
200
think I got
grand or
an
almost
answer.
200,000 they were not getting.
I'll ask that question again, Doug.
We got ripped off. So the intergovernmental, I think that's
126,000.
That's what we did. Yeah. Well, we
legislative
didn't
part
receive that.
of
We
the
projected we
IAC
would receive.
conference.
Yes,
I think that's
that's
one
the
I
Next
signed
fiscal
up
year,
for.
we projected
Oh, so
1.2.
you
you
think
can
we'll
be on
get
that
it
one. I'm
eventually?
already on the
No,
legislative.
don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
I'll put you on that one.
I think that's the one I signed up for. Who would have that? Does Christian Hillary have that?
Kristen Cundiff is the one that you would have responded to.
'Cause I sent that to her.
Okay, that's pretty much it for me.
And for me, I got, the Fair Board, kind of what, they were talking. They like the idea of doing the announcers booths and whatever, but I'm not sure about the office. I think this needs to kind of go slow because if that one office stays when Jeff moves out,
The metal building one,
the
steel building one.
big one closest to the arena, big building where they have their offices right now.
The cement floor and the stage and all that
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
I can't see that building ever going anywhere. I mean, if they need an office, that'd be a place to have an office. But I think you'd want to use that concession, bathrooms, blah, 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 that whole piece underneath that announcer's booth for that. I think an office would be a waste of money, waste of time. When that would come available, when they move the road department out.
What if they chose to knock all of that down and make a huge event center there?
Well, it'd be across that bridge when you get there. But still, you could have an
They can
office
add
and an
it on.
event center.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because
That's true.
that's what they did in council. They built that huge,
Yeah, but is this an office that's gonna be open year round or just during the fair?
well, it's
To me,
kind of,
that's where I would look at, how much use are we gonna get out of an office?
exactly. And that's where my mind was going. It's like,
I mean, if it's for a week, I don't know if I wanna spend that much money for, and I'm not sure you can put an office that close to bathrooms and concessionaire that close to bathrooms. I mean, there's some rules that's gotta kick in there too as well.
I just didn't like the idea when we were mulling it over. It's like wasted money.
Especially when there's the old bathroom just 50 yards away.
And they can use the U of I building that we have as far as meetings and that kind of stuff too, so there's big enough space in there to have.
Where do you guys meet now? Do you still meet up at the lakefront?
On Wednesday, 3rd, I'm gonna miss it this month. They're having their Christmas party. But 3rd Wednesday, we'll meet up there. Too noisy for me, but oh
They
well.
can use the U of I. I mean, there's a conference table there. We designed it so you could have meetings in there.
And I might talk to them about that because all of us have said the same thing. It gets so noisy in there. Can't hear nothing. So I'll keep that in mind, that UVI thing.
Well, and honestly, my feeling is sitting here is I would like to see the plans for this auction or all this whole thing together because before we approve it,
Oh, yeah,
because
absolutely.
I think I could see a new announcer stand. I mean, Scott's talked about that on the south end, but to put a CXT or what are you going to do underneath it? That could be 250,000 right there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a grand plan, like you say, an arena or whatever you call that, convention center, whatever, consolidate the bathrooms there at the announcer stand with your concessions, and I'd assume they'd have a ticket office. I'm not sure where that is. That could be in that same building. And then that frees up the whole rest of the area that we don't know what's going to happen down the road. At least consolidates it, close to the rodeo ground. And then down the road, what happens? Don't know, but I don't want to have a bathroom out in the middle of the place that we have to tear down because we
Right.
put a convention center there
Right.
either.
Yeah.
So there's,
I like the coordinated, use of something that they're gonna build, and that would be most cost effective for certain to do it
Yeah.
that way.
Well, and you remember the green shed right next to the highway where they park all the plows and stuff now?
Mhm.
And that's where they usually run all the horses during the fair. I think Jeff was talking about tearing that building down and moving it out to Gold Dust. To me, I'm not sure that's a good plan either, because we could still use that as part of the fair. With the horses, all that stuff, to tear all that down. I
I
just don't know
think-
how that's gonna turn out.
I think it's going to be a work in progress.
Yep.
Figure out what works, what doesn't, and take it a day at a time.
Yep.
Waterways, it's just rolling along, doing well. I'm so glad they got Steve Hall. They've been trying to find somebody for
Yep.
months and months and months.
And he's a big
Nobody-
motor.
And nobody wants. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And I kind of enjoy the meeting. You see guys from, who is it? Kurt Wolf from the city's always there. The State Department guy's there. Fishing Game's always there. Kevin, Sheriff's always there. Scott out, Emrak's always there. And of course, Jolly and Dave. Kind of enjoyed just all the different things that are going on with all these guys on our water. And so it's enjoyable. I like that. And that's
The snowmobile advisory, have you been going to that one?
I
For
haven't
the
been.
recreation council?
I missed the recreation the other day. I thought it was down here, and I got down here. I said,
It
"What?"
was across the road from you.
It was across the road from me. I looked at my wife. I said, "Oh man, I went the wrong direction." So, oops.
Before we move on to the next topic, Sherry, has there been any more movement on the Whitecap? You heard anything coming out of Whitecap at all?
No, I haven't asked.
The reason I ask that is because part of the lease that we did with the Calvary Church, there's a room, a little storage room on the south end of it. That I guess, I didn't know this, but Whitecap has been doing some sign-up stuff out of that room. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
And I sure as heck don't remember everyone coming to us asking to do that. But
Well, I think, now that you say that though, I think they did. When we closed this, they asked if there was any place they could use. And we told them that they, to work with the seniors. And so I think the seniors actually solidified that, but we did send them that direction. We
no,
didn't
that room is going
charge
to,
anything, but
is part of this lease with the church. And I don't know, Whitecap is once a month.
I have no idea what they're using it.
I think it's once a month. But right now, the big program is called LIHEAP, which is all the emergency help for power bills, rent, heat, that kind of stuff. And it's around $100,000 a year for our constituents. So it's kind of important. But my concern being they're going to show up one day up here and it's not going to be available.
Right. I will reach out to Connie, the
So
director. and
maybe,
see
or
what-
just or send her my name or something and we can sit down and figure it out. I'm hoping that the seniors can let them use their part of it. But we'll see. Okay, we'll wait for Neil to get back and then we'll move on down to our agenda. Who you got online?
It would be Dana Kaufman and Doug Cruz.
Oh,
with
good.
Inside Architect.
Dana and Doug, can you guys hear us?
I can.
Yes, I can.
You guys want to turn your cameras on so we can see how beautiful you look?
I can do that. I just
Otherwise,
didn't want to shock you.
it's okay. We've been shocked a lot. There you are. Welcome, you guys. We're waiting for Commissioner Thompson to come back from the men's room, and then we'll get started.
Sounds great. I'm sure you have all our questions answered, right?
You bet.
I'm hoping you have all of ours answered.
Have you guys had an opportunity to look at the plans and the budgets that we put together?
Not really well, no. I haven't.
Okay.
I have gone over them, yes.
Well, at least somebody has help.
I gotta find the Dadburn thing first. Who did that come from, Jeff? Me- Dana?
I forwarded him to you too, Mr. Chairman. On
Oh, so it'd be
I
under
can
Doug.
Send him to you again.
I got it. I got it, Doug. Took me a while to
No,
find it.
that's something different.
Oh, this is a road budget.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, send it to me again, please. Thanks.
You guys, if everything goes right.
And that is going toward this building.
I know.
That's really good news, Jeff. That's really good news because it's been
Got
what,
close.
4 years, 5 years? Well, stop worrying about it.
5 years in April.
I wonder why I don't have that.
It was November 27th. Did have it again.
good. Okay, we're gonna move on down. Our next agenda item is an action item. This is a discussion decision regarding the Gold Dust Road Department building. Dana and Doug, appreciate you guys being online. I guess I'll kind of turn it over to you guys and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, this is Dana, and I kind of already asked this question, but I guess I'll ask it to the whole group. Doug, and is Jeff there today?
Yeah, Jeff is here. Probably
Okay.
have to come up to the mic, Jeff.
Okay, I'm just curious if either one of those two have looked at the plans and had any comments about the two options or the budgets?
I like the bigger shop with the bigger budget.
Of course you do.
You asked, I told.
I think that's why we're here.
So Jeff,
So-
last. Go ahead.
So, if you don't mind, I can share my screen and we'll just start the conversation with the budgets and just to give an idea of where we are here. So here is, maybe I should start with Jeff's request. Here is the larger of the two buildings.
Nope, that's the smaller.
Nope. Oh, you're right.
That's
Excuse me.
smart.
Thanks. Thank you, sir. Okay, here's the larger of the two buildings. And you can see we've gone through and done a little bit of guesstimates on some things, some site work, and is the big number out here that it's a little bit, that's the one that probably has a little bit of fluff in it, if there's any. The rest of these budgets I've put together, they're based on some historical information that we as Insight keep from different projects, this kind of scale and scope, and just some real recent budgeting from contractors. So I feel pretty comfortable with the numbers the budgets that I have for each of these items. You will notice that I did put a 25% markup for the Valley County location factor, I call it.
That's something that me and Elton had a question on. What is that and why?
Well, that is, so these numbers that I've based this on is pricing here in the valley. And just
Know what that,
knowing, just having some experience with trying to find contractors and buildings in that area, things always seem to cost more there.
Well, of course.
And it has to do with, the labor force up there isn't always what we need. And contractors send their own guys up there. So now they gotta have a per diem and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what's built into that factor. So if we find somebody who's local that can do all of this, absolutely you can save some of that. But that's one of those items I put in there just for discussion points.
Well, Dana, I think you should know, we do have some pretty good, what we call erectors that put up these steel buildings. We had a company that did the roof over the recycling center, and I think that was almost 10,000 square feet. And that cost us, with the cement and everything, it was a little less than $500,000.
Okay.
So that was my question. The 25% for the location seemed a little high for me, but I'm agreeing with Jeff in the fact that we want to make sure that we build a bigger facility that's going to last for the next 25 years. I think We don't need to short ourselves.
50 years.
Okay,
Yep, 50
Okay.
years, 50 years.
50 years.
for at least as long as we're all involved, right?
Exactly.
Longer.
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 So Dana,
Okay, well-
explain to me, I mean, so
Uh-huh.
Jeff wants a bigger building, and what I'd ask him was to really think about the fact that this is one of two buildings. I mean, we're moving the southern end of the county down. You still have Lake Fork. So what I'm seeing, the difference in this is really one bay. So one bay is $400,000.
Yes.
In a metal building? That just sounds
Most of it,
exorbitantly.
I bet half of that's concrete.
Yeah, that's more than just the building, but yes. I mean, there's the heating aspect of it, the electrical, the concrete, the walls, the roof, floor, the excavation.
Well, in
It's,
if I'm looking at the plans, so the wall's already there, it's just moving the wall over an additional 20 feet. Is there
right, but-
extra structural integrity required in the roof because of the addition of that?
Well, it's more than just a wall. It's that whole section. It's the exterior walls, it's the roof section, the floor section in that particular bay. So it's more than that. It's this wall on the ends, these walls, the long walls, the roof section, and the floor section in the middle. So. And
We're also eliminating, we're eliminating that demising wall too, Dana. When we,
Correct. So when we go to this option, well, let me go to here. You're right, Doug. We are also taking out one of the walls that's in the middle here. So it's odd, but that's how the numbers came out for us.
plus, you know, these are estimates that we're guessing at. This is not by any means absolute.
You guys feel like your estimates are conservative or liberal?
So
With that,
I'm wanting to be, let's see, how do I say that? I'm cautious. I want to make sure that we have enough money to build it. So I'm going to say they're conservative in the sense that there is some room for some wiggle room here.
Well, you know, one of the things I'm looking at, like, for example, the power hookup is 25,000 in here. We're working with Idaho Power. They want to purchase some of that ground out there for a substation. Perhaps part of that agreement, they can give us a reduced cost for the hookup. I don't know. I'm just throwing out some little ideas here, but
Jeff, how much of this site work do you think you guys could do at 150,000?
I mean, I'd love to do all the site work, but being shorthanded and with this county
Yeah.
falling apart, I really,
That's true.
it's kind of like match for
It's not your,
everything else. I just don't have time to do it.
yeah.
and I get that.
Hey, Dana, I got a question for you about, you're talking about the steel building, this steel structure, I take it, which is footers and beam construction, is that correct? The whole building?
Correct.
There's no CMU or any of that?
There is some CMU on the sides, just for a wainscot, for a durability perspective.
Right?
So there is some of that and you can see it on the elevations here. So it is, you know, there is a 4-foot high section of CMU all the way around the building.
Okay. So when you're doing your guesstimate on this compared to this same building that would be built down in, you know, down in Meridian or wherever, our roof loads are a little bit higher up here. I know you have to go with a little higher roof load,
Yes.
but is that fairly comparable, being a steel building from there to here?
Yes, I would say that it's a comparable building. The steel will be bigger, the footings will be bigger, there'll be more roof purlins. it kind of, as the way this building operates, the force of the snow load is actually transferred directly to a horizontal and vertical component in the foundations. It's not just a gravity load, so there's more to it than just beefing up a beam.
How about
The
it-
columns get a little bit bigger and all that, so.
So price wise, what if we heated the roof so there wouldn't be any snow on it?
Well, what you might save in this cost, you would more than make up for in energy cost.
Oh,
Plus, I don't think the building department would let you do that.
oh,
Because what happens if your heating source failed? Now your building's gonna fall in. So I don't think that's, that's great fun to think
Okay.
about, but I don't think we can do that.
okay.
So you feel like your $336 a square foot is pretty spot on?
Let me say it this way. Yes, I feel that is a budget that we should work towards or think of.
You think?
We are seeing things go from anywhere from $300 to $600 a foot in buildings and more. So yes, I feel like that is a realistic cost per square foot budget.
So if we start there and then we go for putting it out for bid, we'll know a little closer.
Right. Well, I guess what happens is if we opt for this option A, when we get a little bit further involved in this, we can tighten up some of these numbers if we want to and give another shot at the budget. Right now, I want to be a little high on the budget. Just because, it's between, and these are like today's dollars too. So if we have any kind of inflationary construction costs associated with it, trying to take that into account also. So things just don't seem to get any cheaper. They just don't increase as quickly, it seems like. So.
True.
Yeah, so yeah, I would say we need to stick with something like a budget around this for this building.
I'd like us to agree with Jeff. I look at the numbers. I look at option A, option B. There's not enough difference between A and B dollar-wise to warrant not going away from A. I think if we're going to stay with A, we need to just talk about our numbers, where our money's coming from, how we're paying for this.
I agree with what Sherry's saying also about having that shop in Lake Fork. We're gonna be utilizing that more and more every year. Like last summer, I had a mechanic up there. And I had 2 mechanics down here, or 1 up there, 3 down here. It still works. But I think we're gonna be using both of these shops full bore here in 10 years. The way we're growing, we gotta grow with them. You guys see it.
Oh, yeah, Valley's growing.
More requests coming in, and just the added traffic on everything's just causing more and more maintenance on everything.
I'm just thinking about, southern, northern, we've talked about wanting something in Donley to store the equipment there at any rate. And so, if you had a smaller office or smaller setup in Cascade, then it gives you more of an opportunity in Donley. Because far past us, there's going to be an ongoing conversation about what the midsection of that valley looks like and how do you appropriately maintenance that. If Gestrons were ever to sell and knock everything down, we've got to have money available there too.
Yeah, 'cause right now I'm running 3/4 of my equipment out of this shop down here. 3 pieces out of Donley and 4 pieces out of Lake Fork. It kind of tells me where the main part of the roads are for our maintenance. Yeah, I'm running 3 road graders out of here and 2 loaders, 3 dump trucks. I got 3 pieces in Donley and 2 road graders in Lake Fork and 2 or 3 trucks out of there. And the majority of our road maintenance is down here on this end.
We're gonna see more,
From this side, Little Donner this way.
more valley growing south. This whole valley's gonna keep growing south.
I've never thought about that, but that's, yeah, that could be added in.
I might disagree with that a minute, because when you look at where septics can be approved, you can't get septics at the southern end.
Only,
And so when you look at where the road, where infrastructure is growing right now, it's Donley toward Tamarack. And I mean, Cascade actually has growth because of Phil's development, but that's within the city limits of Cascade, which doesn't impact us. So when you look at large scale subdivisions, you're looking at Donley is where a lot of it is. And that's outside city limits, so that's us. So that's what I'm
right,
and I'm trying to get you to think outside the box a bit, because if you really look at where we get the largest complaints, it's West Mountain Road, it's the Westwood subdivision or Westwind, whatever it is out there. You know, it's that Donley area. And so you're putting all your eggs in one basket in Cascade.
well, like I said, we're still, most everything maintenance wise out of Donley runs out of Lake Fork, 'cause it's only 4 miles away. That's what we do in the summertime. We don't have nothing in Donley. It all runs out of Lake Fork. Eventually there could be three different shops. I don't know. Who knows what this county's gonna look like in 20 years?
Agreed. Think about what, you know, right now is this moment in time to think about not only right now, but the planning for the future.
I can actually see adding on to that Lake Fork shop here in the next 10 years. Adding another bay on that thing, just to keep up with what we got. 10 years, 15.
Well, and I think the other issue is that, the facility that we have here in Cascade now is in dire straits. It's in pretty bad shape. And I don't think a lot of it is even OSHA approved. We could get into trouble really fast, I think. Some issues there, but the thing that I don't want to do, as I stated earlier, is I don't want to make it too small to try and save money where you can't end up with what you got now. Too small of a facility, you can't drive a grader through it, you can't drive a dump truck through it.
I mean, we've got 3 bays on this shop here. They're just too short. And they're jam-packed. I can drive down there today. I got pickups in one, I got a dump truck in one, and I got a grader in the other one.
So you've got 3 bays here. So what is the square footage of your shop here?
What's that?
What is the square footage of the existing shop?
With the offices, like 9, right at about 10, I think, 1,000, maybe 500.
About the same size as our building at the recycle center.
Okay. I mean, I think it is, I was a home builder for years, and that's what I always heard, if I only would have. So we do need to be sure of that, because it's not easy just to add on, especially where it is contiguous space. I think that if we go with a large one, it's setting precedents for the future, because I think you're taking all of your money right now and using it on one facility. And that's a concern to me, that we're not thinking longer term.
You're thinking we
But-
should be something in Donley?
I-
Buying ground and building something in Donley?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking a difference of $500,000. I mean, a storage shed for now, you could easily put up something like Gestrans has in Donley and doing something with it, but I'm just looking at the long-term vision for Valley County. And if Jeff feels like, I mean, this is a lot on your plate, Jeff.
Oh,
That's what
no.
I'm relying heavily on you. You know, as a decision maker spending money, I just want to make sure that it is spent in a location that makes sense for longevity.
Well, I'm just glad we have a turn lane on the highway because that would have cost us a lot of money to build that too.
That helps.
That helps a big amount.
Well, we don't have a CUP on this, right? I mean, do we have to have a
No,
CUP on this to do anything?
Thursday.
I'm working on it. I'm
Done.
ready to give it to an engineer. It's just driving me up the wall. I don't think that way.
Well, I'm just, we don't, will there be further requirements on this? Or do we
No,
just
I've-
have to have
I've
a
already-
building
I've
permit?
already talked to Cindy. It's just normal stuff.
Okay.
Landscaping plan, lighting plan, drainage plan. Our nearest neighbors are 1,500 feet away or something from where the shop's gonna be. And
Okay.
so to answer your question, Sherry, I don't see, I'm not having second thoughts on it. I totally agree with what you guys are saying. Donley's gonna eventually need something. And that Lake Fork side's, our maintenance, some of our routes are gonna go to 24-hour plow routes here within the next 5 years, I can guarantee it. It's just kinda all over the place. But the majority of our equipment's down here.
But that's
we're
only
gonna need
because
more
that's,
in Donley at some time or another, plus we're gonna need more in Lake Fork at some time, so.
think about that though. The majority's down here because that's where your building is right now.
No, this is where most of our equipment runs out of. I mean, only got 3 running out of Donley, and we're doing just fine with the 3. There's just no shop there, just a lean-to. It's real easy to get stuff to the Lake Fork shop for the mechanics to do services on. I don't know, it's hard to see the future.
Okay, so the
no.
next conversation is, where do we get the money? So at 4.5 million,
Getting 800,000 from FEMA next week.
you take that off and we're at 3.8. You know, I mean, if we say, I think, you know, we've talked about 3.5 coming out of ARPA. And if we could solidify that amount, Jeff, you get a lot of carryover right now. So I think that we would have to rely, my opinion is, we would have to rely on the road department budget for anything over 3.5. So if that's that rebate check plus some of your carryover, No.
800,000 you just talked about, so yeah.
Yeah, it's either coming next week or the week after.
we know we have one more SRS payment of 1.2 this year. Plus we've been getting from the state, Doug solidified this morning, 3.7.
That's
So you
what we
got-
projected, but,
For the user fees.
Yeah.
bear with me.
And right now, you're only renting about 2.1 or 2 for all your salaries, wages, to actually keep the doors open. So you've got, you know, your road projects are what's gonna be really important. What's on your L2 that you're turning in? What things have to be done this next year that's gonna cost some money?
She's referring to the annual financial report.
Oh, is that an L2? I'm sorry, okay, I'm calling it the wrong thing.
Yeah, annual financial, I'm working on that right now.
I think, well, at least in my personal opinion, I feel like we ought to look at the option A and just, okay, this point in time, let's work on this building. We all like the size of the building for what your needs are. Down the road, I'm not gonna do what if down the road. If we see we need something in Donley down the road, it'll warrant it itself. And then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Same way the Lake Fork shop. If that needs to be added on in one bay, talk about that down the road. But I think for today, I'd like to see us just, you know, go ahead with this option A, see where it goes, especially after we get bids. If the bids come in way too high, then may have to back up.
Right.
But I think we need to at least start with one point and go forward and see where it goes from there. And that's my 2 cents.
So really, I think what we need to decide, at least in my mind, is, okay, we are going to limit ARPA funds to $3.5 million. And
I
your
would
statement
vote on
about
that
anything
today.
else on or above that's gonna have to come out of road department. And I think that's perfectly reasonable ask. We know 99% certain that this is probably gonna, some of it's gonna be under budget and some of it's gonna come in over budget. It's just the way it works, but we might catch some breaks too on you guys being able to do some of that work. If it's March or April and you can't touch the roads yet because they're too muddy, then there's some time there where you could go in and dig around, move material and put in a septic system or whatever that may entail. But go ahead, Doug. I want
I
your.
apologize, Commissioners. I just also want to remind, there's also the Insight architect fee that we have to consider as well. And that's approximately 271,000. So
Okay.
That's coming out of.
I was planning on coming out of ARPA as well.
Dana, I got a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Is there any wiggle room in there for value engineering?
Well, sure, we can always, I always like to call it devalue engineering. But yes, I mean, maybe there's an opportunity to eliminate some of the CMU in there that makes it, that cost more than the metal building, but it is more durable. Then let me pull up this floor plan and we can kind of walk through that. And we can identify things, I mean, like this wall right here, this big tall wall that we need for a fire separation. We're thinking that is a big CMU wall. I'm not sure that if we tried to frame that with steel studs and 6 layers of gypboard, that it would be any less expensive. And it would be a whole lot less durable in the long run.
Kenny, can you tell me what CMU stands for? I'm not sure what.
It's a concrete masonry unit, like a 8x16.
What's a concrete block?
Yeah, concrete block.
Okay, I'm with you now.
And we have to
Cinder
be,
block.
we have to be careful too, because if we don't use the right product, then they may throw back in sprinklers on this. Steve Hull said, we're
Yeah,
okay with
that's-
sprinklers as long as we divide these with the appropriate materials.
Yeah,
So
and that's what David
Correct,
said.
that is correct, Sherry. That is correct, and that's why this wall here on grid line 3 and the wall on grid line 2 are actually fire rated walls, so that we have essentially three buildings here that
Andy,
don't
you've got
exceed
up
the
the
square feet.
smaller, you've got up the smaller building. Will you put up the one that is the big one?
This is the big one.
The smaller one has that big bay, it's smaller.
Yeah, here's the smaller one.
That looked just like the other one. Sorry, I'm missing something.
Oh, well, it's similar. The larger one has 2 demising walls in here. If I bounce back, you'll see that there's an additional wall in the middle here. On the smaller bay, we just separated the welding bay from the rest of the building. On the larger one, we separated
Got
the
it.
welding bay and the heavy equipment bay. And we did that because we wanted a sound and dirt separation between anything in the welding shop.
Yep.
So that was the idea. I mean, this wall, you know, if Jeff wanted, we could eliminate this wall and save a little bit of cost. But now it puts all of the noise and dirt and fumes and dust and grinding and all that in one big bay rather than separated. And that's been one of the complaints, or one of the issues, one of the reasons we're doing this is to not have that. So, I mean, those are some things that we could look at if you so wanted.
Well, the
You know,
CMU that's on the outside of the building, you're saying that that's one place we could cut. Instead of doing that 4 foot high outside with concrete, we would just use steel or metal, and
The tin would just go all the way to the bottom.
tin would go all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and there would be some savings in that, yes. But I don't know, it's just really hard in all the buildings we've done like this. If you don't have something durable down there in that first section, you end up regretting it.
I agree.
Dana, we might
But-
be able to, since those are straightforward, we could maybe have those as bid alternates. That way they can.
Yes, you're exactly right, Doug. We could absolutely put that as a bid alternate. You know, there's little things like we are showing a little entry cover.
We really need that with the snow up here.
You know, that guy, I mean, it's not a huge cost, but it's something.
It shows people where to go into the building to find the office.
Exactly. I mean, it's definitely a wayfinding tool also. There are the overhangs of the buildings that we want to put in there. Those have a cost associated with them. It's a little bit extra framing, it's extra roofing. So those have a cost.
I mean, if you're telling us that that roof will hold all the snow, then we really don't need a 3-foot overhang. Even
Until
though
it
it's nice to
starts-
get the water away from the building too, but
Yeah.
Right. The slope of the roof is not conducive to having that stuff slide off. We're keeping it flat enough that it will tend to stay up there.
What is that, 1 in 12?
Yes,
wow.
Pretty flat. You have overhangs on your Lake Fork shop,
Right, 3 foot,
3-footers?
yeah, but it sheds, it's a 412,
Oh,
4
yeah.
or 512, I think.
So Dana, this is an all-inclusive bid. There shouldn't be anything that we are gonna have to fund in addition.
so let's think about that. Let's go back to our floor plan. What is there for any kind of lifts as far, I mean, we haven't really talked about the lifts. Jeff had mentioned he has a few lifts already that we could put in here. We did not include this crane hoist, if that is something that we want to do. We can put in the foundations and whatnot, but the hoist itself is not part of our budget at this time.
Yep, we can hold off on that as long as the foundation's built to hold one in the future.
Uh-huh. We can absolutely do that because they're land at pretty much all of foundations anyway, so that can absolutely, we just have to make an educated guess on the weight that the crane's gonna take, and we can do that.
Jeff, you're
And
gonna have-
then any kind of storage, racking, shelving, that kind of stuff, that is not in our budget at this time.
No, we would just buy that as we go.
Or furniture in the offices, I think you currently have furniture that we can use.
I've seen Jeff's. His might be a bit beat up. We may need a new.
What?
I think you need a bigger desk, Jeff, because you're just so piled up with papers.
I think he's been eyeballing one of these, I don't know.
What I've experienced from myself is the bigger the desk I have, the more stuff I pile on it.
Boy, howdy.
That's why I went
So-
with a smaller desk, thinking I could be more organized, but it didn't help.
Yeah, well,
Well, Mickey's
I
desk is
thought-
built in, I think.
yeah, I thought that too, but then I started stacking it higher.
I mean, we've got a lot of shelving upstairs we'll move. Yeah, the incidentals, small stuff like that, it doesn't need to be in the bid. We've got, if we need something after the fact, we'll find someplace to get something, but I'm thinking of big ticket dollars that we could shave, or like that CMU wall on the outside. And both of our shops have survived pretty good. Lake Fork one's been dinged a couple times with the snow plow. One of my guys came in 10 years ago and lost his brakes in his dune buggy and slammed into the side of it. Which,
Did he
if it would
fix
have been
it?
a brick wall, it had to be replaced anyway, so.
Right.
And I think Doug,
We absolutely can do that, Jeff. That's not a problem. We can put that as an alternate. I think that was a great idea, Doug.
But what I'm wondering is maybe the CMU on the front, but on the sides and the back, maybe you don't need it.
Sure.
Easily do that.
I mean, as far as, if you really, it should be probably on the eve ends, because the snow coming off is gonna,
Snow's in it coming off.
well, you know how that works up here.
Yeah.
it ain't gonna come off on 1 and 12. Ain't no way.
Yeah, that's, I mean, any $10 here, $100 there, it all adds up.
Now, if you're gonna have to put your big fuel tanks out there too, is that gonna be expensive?
No,
Just gotta run power to them?
well, just power and that's it.
Okay.
We have to have a crane to come in and load it on our trailer. We can haul it out there and they just unload it and we set it on the new pad and the electrician has it and it's ready to go.
No good. Like,
Would that,
not
would
this
that
one.
be something we should show as a owner moved item, not make that part of
Busy.
the.
Yeah,
contract?
the fuel tank I'll take care of. I didn't see that on there. Was it listed on there as a pay item?
No, it was not, but we were thinking maybe there's a couple of concrete pads or something we need to have out there, but,
No, we'll probably just put them on railroad ties.
okay.
Yeah, they're already on just basically solid railroad ties right now and we'll probably just do the same thing.
But then how long will it take to go out for a hard bid? Or can you even get a hard bid? Or are they doing cost plus now, or what are they doing?
Well, we can get a hard bid. My guess is, from the time that you say, yes, this is the plan, we want to go, let's go do it. We're probably putting this thing on the street in February,
Good time to do it.
between February and March.
Don't want to wait any longer than that because everybody's going to be booked.
Yeah, well, we're going to try to get it done sooner, but, you know, it takes a while to get through this process as it should. Want to make sure we get the right building.
You don't have in there removal of the salt storage or any of that other stuff in this bid, do you? It's just the building only.
Right now, it's just the building only. I
Okay.
mean, there might be some wiggle room in that site work number, like I was talking about. But I also know that when CUPs are done, there are landscaping requirements sometimes that we need to address. So I was trying to keep a budget in there that we could accommodate that. There
Right.
might be a component where we need to put some asphalt in, like a 50-foot section before we get onto Gold Dust Road. You know, that kind of stuff that I don't know that we have to do yet, but just trying to think of that.
Yeah, we've got our own paver. We can do the landscaping, we can do the pavement. Little things
Right,
like that.
we can say that, Jeff, but like you stated at the beginning, you're pretty busy and you're running pretty short staff anyway, so.
I know, that's what
Try and,
gets me in trouble with my crew. I get too much stuff lined up.
You know how to plant
Well,
willows.
I just ask my Doug about that. We do that to him all the time.
We'll find out next spring.
So yes, we can think of stuff like that, Jeff, absolutely.
Well, I wasn't gonna do a landscaping deal, but Cinda told me I had to do a landscaping plan and plant something.
Yep. Gotta follow our own ordinance.
Now, yeah, it's tough to have those rules that you have to follow, aren't they?
Make everybody else do them. I guess I gotta do
Some wildflowers.
Well,
Wildflower
yeah,
seed,
that-
throw it out there.
them. Okay.
So Jeff, we can help you with that application if you would like. So just let us know if you want to, if what you need and whatnot, we can certainly jump in and help with that.
Yeah, if I'm not an engineer, I thought I was almost complete and I took it in and showed it to Cinda a while ago and she basically kicked me out the door and said, not even close.
Good for her. I'm impressed with her right now.
So yes, that'll come out of my budget, Dana, so maybe I'll kick you in the loop here and see if you can help me get this thing finished.
Okay, absolutely.
You
Keep
guys
in
have
mind-
And I
what,
know
3
that,
days?
I know that, excuse me, I know that the civil engineer we have on board here, the land group, I know Kirsten up there, she's been doing a lot of projects up there. She has a pretty good relationship with Cinda. So I think we have a team there that can really help you out, Jeff.
Okay, well, let's just plan on that. I'll chat with you here a little later today or tomorrow and
Okay.
see if we can get this thing moving.
Sounds good.
Well,
'Cause we would
I'm
definitely
really,
need to include whatever site work improvements that need to be made, we would want to put on this set of plans.
Right.
And whether Jeff, you do it or we have a contractor do it, we can cross that bit, that later.
Okay. And I am working with Atlas right now on the soil testing and stuff, so I'm just waiting for their side of the agreement to get signed so we can get that thing moving.
Perfect.
so I'm assuming what we need from us today is a motion to proceed with the larger building and how we're going to fund it and pay for it. And we decided to go with 3.5 million of ARPA funds, and then the rest will come out of the road department. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That is what I would.
Does that work for everybody?
Works for me.
So I guess,
So the one person we didn't ask was Doug. And he does all of the budgets.
Well, as
You
Dana
have an
indicated,
opinion?
I wanted 3.5, and that Valley County, what you're calling,
Option A.
well, yeah, the Valley County 25% increase is where we're off. And I, of course, I would like to see that be reduced, but I understand that that's not always necessary. So it is close to the 3.5 that we had presented to Inside. I am satisfied with that. However, where we're going to find the additional funds, we're going to have to sit down and really discuss that, Jeff, because my take on it, there are projects that you had budgeted for next fiscal year that we're really going to the commissioners are going to have to take a hard look at if they want you to continue to move forward with those or not. Because that's the only way that I see that this project can be funded with road department funds this fiscal year.
This won't be till 25.
Okay,
I mean, so Dana, payments will start, say we start construction next spring. When do we have to start paying on this project?
Most likely 30 days after you sign the contract for them to go. The payments will start monthly, 30 days after that.
Okay, and they're talking about the main part of the building being up, everything outside being done by fall, then
Correct.
during the winter, they're gonna work on the inside.
Correct.
And it'll be finished by spring of 25, correct?
I would say yes.
Okay, so
And maybe a little sooner, but yes, somewhere in that neighborhood.
2 different
I just
fiscal
think,
years.
however, we're going to be really looking closely
Right.
of expenditures for this fiscal year to make sure that we are in a position that we can fully pay for this project.
Right.
We have to be cautious.
Because I did not budget anything in my budget for building in 24.
Correct.
Three
That's
and a
what I was
half
looking at.
million's gonna take care of this next year anyway.
How much?
The 3.5 million out of ARPA.
I think that will definitely, yes.
Oh,
The rest
Okay.
of it's gonna be the finalized product that'll be in your next year's
that'll
budget.
be in 25.
Correct. So you're gonna have to look at some of your carryover funds. And I think what Doug's talking about is I would like to see your list of what your priority projects were for the next
We have
couple years.
2.5 million in projects for fiscal year 2024. That would cover our overage, right? Cover more above and beyond the 3.5 that the commissioners are already dedicating of ARPA dollars. But you have that funding right now tied up in future projects that I think we really need to take a close look at.
24,
For 24, yep,
that's paving, chip sealing.
yep.
And the public is not gonna be happy if we don't do some of those that are in really bad shape and put it all into a building. That's not gonna,
Where I'm getting at, I just don't know if you should move forward with all of the projects that were budgeted for.
Right.
Well,
But that's gonna be a further discussion with the
we
commissioners.
can convert 3.5 of ARPA and we get another 800,000, we've got our 4.3. We're pretty damn close and we haven't even gotten into his budget. If we don't
Mr.
get
Chairman,
the
you're-
800,000, then's when we're gonna have to figure out.
We're gonna get, me and Mickey are busting our heinies right now, getting some paperwork ready to go, so we get a check on the 20th.
perfect.
Let us know as soon as you get that check, will you? So I'm gonna go ahead then and make the motion that we go ahead and approve the larger structure, I don't remember which one.
Option A.
Option A. And for the, what was it? 4.3 something. $4,561,916. That gives us a square footage of $336.05 a square foot. This is a 13,575 square foot building. And that we take 3.5 million of ARPA funds for that, towards that cost, and the rest will come out of the road department budget. That's my motion. Second. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
I
Aye, motion carries.
wanted you to be able to make that motion.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Been a long time getting here, but we're here finally. And I appreciate the support of the other two commissioners on this as well, so.
Thank you, folks. We will move quickly on this, get the rest of our design team involved, start working with a metal building manufacturer, our mechanical electrical engineers. And Jeff, we're gonna have to start talking about a little bit more specifics inside the building. For maybe like outlet locations and light switches and types of lights and heating systems and all that kind of stuff. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So now's when our work really begins, Jeff.
I'll see if I can squeeze you in.
Hey, just hope it doesn't snow.
I have a feeling you will.
Has it so far? No,
Yeah,
we'll
he'll give you
definitely-
priority over us, believe me.
So what do
This
you
is
need?
the fun part.
Well, I'll call you, Dana, as soon as I get back to the office and see what I need to get for
Okay.
the CUP.
All right, well, I will be here the rest of the afternoon here in the office, so I'll look forward to your call.
Okay, see if I can remember between here and the shop.
Dan, is there anything that we need to sign or do today with you guys?
No, I think we have enough witnesses that will, I might send a little note off to everybody saying thank you, and it's our understanding that we're gonna select option A, and we will put in as an alternate the CMU wainscot. I didn't see of any other alternates that we had talked about as something, so we can have that as an alternate. We also discussed not having the overhangs.
I think.
So, I mean, that will save some. We could put that as an alternate also.
We have a 3-foot overhang, or is it a 2-foot overhang?
Right now, we're showing 3 feet.
We could bump that back to 18 inches pretty easily if no snow's gonna slide off.
Yeah, we could certainly make that shorter, but I wouldn't go less than a foot.
Well, that's on the gable end though. Wouldn't matter.
Well, it's on all 4 sides.
All 4 sides.
Yes.
We
Well, I
definitely,
know, but your doors are on the gable end.
yeah, we wanna
Correct.
stay the 3 foot on the gable. And.
Oh, okay.
But the side where the snow might slide off, we could knock it back to no less than a
Okay.
foot.
Oh,
And,
sure.
and just, And
Whatever
just so you
makes
know,
build-
Jeff, those are the most difficult parts of the building to do. So if we can reduce those overhangs on the low side of the building, that's more bang for the buck.
With 3 foot on the front and 18 inches on the backside on the gable ends. Something we can discuss.
Is there any passive solar opportunities with those 3 foot? Would it make a difference on heating and cooling?
No, that's so high up in the air that it really isn't gonna do much for the windows or anything.
Okay.
So, I mean, a great thought. I love how you're thinking there, but it's so tall.
I'm just thinking right now, our shop that we have right now has no overhang on the gable ends. And we're constantly shoveling snow away from the door.
That's what I was thinking.
So if we had even just had 18 inches, it would help out immensely.
3 foot on the gable ends makes
Yeah,
sense.
18 inches on the gable, we could just drop to 18 inches all the way around, or, I don't know.
You decide.
See how much it saves. It's probably not gonna save that much, but
I
Maybe
would
ding it.
agree. I
Yeah.
would agree.
Bid it without it and with it and see what you come up with.
Okay.
That's just on the building, so that's building and siding, I guess. Roofing.
Yeah, it would be the roofing and the structure is all. So, okay.
What I'm thinking is if we don't use the CMU, that snow sliding off, coming back against that building is gonna
It
Mess
doesn't
up
do
the
nothing
metal.
to our building down here.
you bent your roof off. You bent it off where it comes off your roof.
What it has on this end.
Just see how far we get.
I haven't never looked at the north end and the south end it has where it broke your
North
window.
end, we gotta take an excavator over there once in a while and pull the snow away from the windows.
Yeah. Okay, are we
Hey,
good?
Thanks,
So-
Dana.
All right.
girls,
What I'll do is we'll modify this plan and send it for Jeff and Doug's and your review. Just make sure we're on the right page, but I think we'll get started.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a great day.
The direction of the building.
Okay, you too.
You're
Thank
gonna have
you.
north facing now.
Thank you.
It's gonna be the cold side of that building. So right now you've got
The north
east
side will be
facing
the cold side. That's the
Correct.
side we're-
where your doors are gonna be. So if you wanna go longer span because of that, that would be one of the considerations.
Right.
Because right now you're getting some morning sun that's melting stuff off.
I just thought it'd be better to have the main offices face the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I moved the offices to the west side, away from the fuel tank and all that other stuff.
Perfect. Any of your
Oh,
consideration.
Ladies and gentlemen.
See ya. Have a
You
Merry
go.
Christmas.
Going south.
Not 5 o'clock yet.
South.
Somewhere it is.
I guess if you go south far enough, it'll be 5
South.
o'clock.
That's just Louisiana. It goes
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock down there.
about 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock somewhere.
Have a good trip.
You guys have a great.
Yep, be safe. Okay, thank you.
Yep, keep us in the loop.
Oh, yeah.
Have any questions, something, give us a call.
I was gonna tell you about the FEMA money today, but the cat thing had me all screwed up in the head, so. But we're trying to get the money on the 20th. If it's not on the 20th, it'll be the week after.
Hey, just let us know as soon as
How
you,
close we are.
as soon as you
I don't know how
find
it's
it.
coming, if it's probably gonna most likely be AC straight. Would be my guess. I don't know.
you think so? Come directly to Doug?
It might go straight to Johanna. I have no idea.
It'll usually come in ACH.
So you'll let us know when you get it, Doug. That's huge.
That's huge.
That's huge.
4 years waiting.
Perfect timing. We would have already spent it somewhere else. All right.
I was listening to part of that.
Yeah.
What you could do to get something in Donley. Because we have some big developments going in up there. Make it part of the development agreement. You know,
Huh?
like where the PUD is, or next to the fire station in Tamarack. It was the house right there.
Well, I was even thinking about this little chunk of ground on Shaline that Idaho Power has. It's already fenced in.
I mean, so I think there's some alternatives.
There's no roof or anything over it, but. Okay, we're gonna move on down to our agenda. Our next agenda item is an action item. Cindy, come on up.
We're kicking you two out.
This is the development agreement policy.
Well, actually, they both need to participate here.
Oh, yes, you both need to participate here.
Me?
This is development agreement.
Oh, again? I thought we had that all squared away.
You did? Good, thanks. We're done. Approved.
Nope, we're all gonna be on the same page.
I read this and I think it all looks great. I don't know what to change, if there's
Thank you.
anything.
Well, I don't think we're ready to adopt it today. I think we all need to think about it. I mean, is this what we're trying to do? Is this the process we think should, take place? Do you wanna go through it?
Well, the only question I had on it, when I read it, and maybe Sherry, we can certainly go through it if Sherry wants to, but my comments about if someone is gonna come in and develop their piece of ground next to the county road, and they have to give up some easement or some footage to get a right of way through there, is that considered a takings?
Well,
I mean,
that's-
I know there's a value to it, but is that really part of the development agreement?
Well, it depends. And if you read the policy, you'll see that those kinds of projects will require a takings analysis.
Right.
So each one of those project proposals will there'll be an analysis done by my office for your consideration to make sure that we're compliant with the law and that we don't owe a fair market value on that. So
What I'm wrestling with, Brian, in my head is that if he wasn't developing it, it wouldn't be required.
Right.
Because he's developing this into a multiple lot sub, whatever it is, he needs do this in order to get a county approved road into there. Why is that part of the development agreement?
Why is the right of way part of the development agreement?
It has a value, like what we've been seeing.
It's kind of two-pronged. I mean, we've always required people to dedicate a 70-foot right-of-way or something, 35 feet from center.
Right.
If the external road that their subdivision is adjacent to, if that right-of-way is expanded, and then they deed us that right-of-way, or they dedicate that right-of-way to us, we already have a 50-foot prescriptive easement, but now they're going to actually give us 35 feet. 25 feet of which is already prescriptive. So we are taking something additional. And so our road standards currently say that we will give them the value of the 10 feet
Towards the development
towards
agreement.
what they owe on their development agreement.
And that's where I'm wrestling. If that's like, they wouldn't have had to do this, they didn't develop.
Right, but we wouldn't have gotten it if they wouldn't have
Right.
developed, is kind of the other way to look at it. Because we have the 50-foot prescriptive. They are now going to do a development along the road. And so we're excited. Now's our opportunity to actually get a dedicated right-of-way instead of just a prescriptive easement.
My only caveat to that is it something that the county will actually use and be productive for the county as we move forward? Because there's some areas where it dead ends and it's not gonna be any good for the county to do anything with anyway. And so to me, that would be, that's kind of a case by case, which I hate to do because I don't like anything that's not,
It's a public right-of-way, so, a public right-of-way that
public right.
goes somewhere. Whether it's to public lands, to a development further on, very few public rights-of-ways just dead end.
I can see, for example, the development we just proved up in Donley where it's on East Roseberry Road, it's a full 70-foot easement, so they don't have to give us any ground from our right of way. So that was development agreement of $1 million. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna take people that aren't on a 70-foot road and encourage them to develop. Because they aren't gonna have to come up with much money other than the chunk of ground for the right of way,
For the 10 feet.
for the 10 feet or
because we already
whatever
have
that is.
25 feet. So,
And I'm
10
still wrestling if that's
But that's in our public road standards. That's in the standards. This is something different. This is a development agreement.
I think this question and others that are going to pop up as we have this conversation is why I think it's important that we don't rush to adopt a policy. It gives you some time to review it, think about it, ask questions. We can have a workshop and discuss things. One of the things that I am hoping to include in the process, which I think will be an improvement in the process, is a system where we are making a finding somehow through bringing a proposal to the board that the expected impacts on the roads that are going to service the subdivision are being accounted for in this development agreement. And that nexus is what helps us justify this legal requirement from a legal perspective. This development is going to have this impact on this road. And here are the improvements that we are going to require the developer to make in order to mitigate those impacts that we expect to have. We need to have a finding that we have identified those, we anticipate those impacts, and we'll memorialize that in the development agreement and through this takings analysis process as well. That's the part of this process that I'm hoping through the policy, if we adopt an ordinance later to memorialize this policy, and then this process of bringing these development agreements in front of you as the board, those are the topics of conversation that we'll be having. And if we can't identify any potential impacts because it's maybe it's a single lot subdivision, or I don't want to hypothesize because it's going to be site specific, but that's where you're going to run into the takings problem. Is you're taking even a 10-foot right of way, but you can't identify there's a connected impact for this particular project, and that might be one where we would say we're going to waive the requirement to have a development agreement and a subsequent payment because we can't identify any realistic impacts from this particular subdivision.
So if we had, let's say, a quarter mile of 50-foot road and we wanted to take that out to a 70-foot road, and we had a 1 lot or a 2 lot sub, there's really not that much impact. So chances are the value of that 10-foot donation, whatever that is, it's going to cover the development agreement. However, if in a quarter of a mile, you end up going way back in and you have 100 lots, now it's a whole different picture because the value of that is not even going to come close to the impact that 100 lots are going to put on that road.
And that's what this is about, is identifying the impacts and then mitigating it based upon a site-specific application.
And there's more that goes into the process of putting together a development agreement and negotiating the terms with the developer than just assigning a dollar value for each individual lot. We have to go to that next step and say, this is 100 lots or 50 lots, and you're going to put this many additional vehicle trips, and we identify what the collector streets are for that development, and that's where the parametric study is a huge resource, and it's valuable to us because that helps identify, well, this is how you can anticipate that these collector roads are going to be, the deterioration is going to be accelerated because of these additional vehicle trips that this new subdivision will put on those roads, and then you can quantify it and assign a dollar value to it. And that's what I think that's what the details of a development agreement will flush out.
And there might be a difference in the type of development. Let's take, a subdivision up on East Mountain that is only going to be accessed 4 months out of the year. That's going to have a lot less impact than something that's going, right next to the city that's going to be accessed several times a day. Those are the kinds of things we'll be looking at.
So how do you handle the situation, Cindy? Let's just say everything falls in line and all of a sudden East Roseberry is a beautiful road from Tamarack all the way to Highway 55. We don't need any more improvements on that road. Can we still charge a development agreement and use it somewhere else?
This is not going to be CIP specific
Right, I
area.
understand that.
You can use those monies, you're always gonna have maintenance costs. I mean,
There has to be a
Yeah, there's-
nexus. There
yeah.
has to be a connection between the development and the expected impacts on the collector roads that service those. To take, basically to take a financial amount of money from a developer and put it in some other part of the county where there's no
That's what I'm asking.
expected connection,
Yeah,
you're gonna run into a problem.
but you
Well,
could
and
take that and
That's
say,
an impact fee.
use it on Norwood, or you could use it on West Mountain that's
If you
somewhere
can-
close in that
If you
development.
can
Is it-
show that, that development will have an impact on that, it might not be the closest connector road to it, but with additional
Okay.
traffic, it's gonna push more. And that's where I say, we need to improve this process where we can make that finding, where we can say, it is expected and we're finding as a matter of fact that this will have an impact on a secondary road or one that's close by but not directly connected to it. We expect that there's going to be an impact on that road, and this is how we're going to minimize the harm or the impact on that area.
We can prove it with before and after traffic study. We saw a 25% increase on this road because of, increased traffic in these other areas, and use those for,
Can you save this money? The reason I ask that is, okay, could we take the Garnet Valley Development Agreement, take that money and put it away to replace the S Bridge someday? So that would be a separate trust that Jeff could not get to until it only goes for the S Bridge.
well, this is not,
I don't know, I'm asking.
yeah, in my opinion, this is not following the state statute for impact fees. This isn't tied into that 8-year you have to spend it capital improvement plan. This is tied into continuing operations of the road department, improvements to the roads within the system, or saving it so you can accumulate enough match to implement a grant. I mean, it's
the
not
S
tied
Bridge,
in.
we already have a 30% down payment, so. And that would be,
Yeah, but we don't know what the cost is and what the match is gonna be. And I'm hoping the 30% will cover our match to replace that bridge, but we don't even know what that's gonna cost yet.
Me and Kinsey are working on that Thursday, doing another grant for it.
So you have a 30% match already?
MREX was 30% in their PUD,
So the timing of
why they want to be at
the offsite improvement should be flushed out or spelled out in the development agreement itself.
I agree with that 100%, that within X amount of years, we are going to fix this road with this money. It's not gonna be saved forever.
When we charge you for your development, we'll make sure and put it in.
I'm not developing.
Well,
I've already committed to not.
He refuses to move his fences back. He
No.
complains about
What?
the snowplow knocking him down.
It's my easement. You're lucky I give it to you. The other issue, Brian, that we haven't really talked about, and I think it's more of an impact discussion, but the impact that's happening in our trash right now. I don't know if you guys are seeing what's happening with our trash deal, but it's just blowing up the last 2 or 3 years, and it's gone way up over, I think, 3 million. Do we need to start thinking about the development agreement for trash, so much a lot or something?
Well, so the basis, the legal basis for this process, for these development agreements, is outlined in Idaho Code. And I think we have shared that with you, and you will see that the ability to require off-site improvements is beyond just roads. It's really any service that is provided by any governmental entity. So it's not even just county services. It would include schools and fire districts and things of that nature. So your opportunity to identify impacts on services is there, yes. So if there is a need or a desire to expand this to include impact on solid waste disposal, then that is an authorized.
Well, we know we need a whole bunch of improvements up there. We've got way behind on keeping that up to modern standards, but like, I've thought about the sheriff's department. We don't really have any plans to expand the sheriff's department. We need more help and more officers and deputies, so to speak, but there's no physical structure that would change.
So there again, you have the crux is you have to find a nexus between the impact of the development upon the service that you are trying to minimize the cost. This is not an impact. This is an impact fee. There's a whole system of steps you have to follow for an impact fee, which is different.
But also, we have to take into account, so solid waste, we actually have a solid waste bill on every single property tax that we put out there. So as these things are built, we're mitigating the sewer or the solid waste by that fee that we're getting. That's actually a user fee, if you will, on every property tax bill. Same thing on some of these other
Same
impacts.
thing with
That's why we
sheriffs, same
didn't
thing
do.
with new appraisers, more inspectors. It's
As-
all on the taxes.
It's on the taxes. And, that's why we didn't do impact fees, was
Mhm.
because the impact fee pays for really the first 2 to 3 years of service until the property taxes really kick in full. And so then it's just making things more and more expensive as we go. So we haven't done some of this stuff because property taxes will cover our expenses in the long term.
A large development, well, I'll just say with West Rock, they paid us for 3 years of lag in when property taxes would fund new employees.
We have to think about that too. We can't put everything.
Large ones, right.
Yeah, we can't put everything up front on the developer because that just goes directly to the land cost and then it just drives our costs higher. So we need to be sensitive to that, but also be sensitive to the fact that we want people able to live here full time. And the more that we put the costs on these guys, then the higher our housing costs are.
And from a legal perspective, you can't shift the cost burden entirely onto the developer. So for example, if you need just hypothetically, you need new equipment at the transfer station. You can't assign one development the entire cost of that additional piece of equipment. It has to only be their proportionate share, because all the developments, all the residents of Valley County use the transfer station, and so it has to be carved out equally and fairly.
And the way I look at that now is that it's working now for the demand on the system, the population we have. So if we don't get any more development, we'd be okay.
You
With
have to
the
look
old,
ahead.
but with the increase in volume that we're seeing because of new people coming in, it's not gonna be able to handle it in a few more years.
And as far as, I think, and to Sherry's point, the solid waste fee structure is kind of built in for handling that.
Hopefully, yeah.
Maybe this isn't the best vehicle to capture that specifically for solid waste, but your statute is broad enough that any service, any county-wide service that we provide that's impacted by development can be part of a development agreement. The focus has been on impacts on roads because that's I think the largest need at this point. But
Yeah, we listed roads, parks, schools, hospitals, fire departments, wildfire mitigation, pathways, workforce housing, county staff, utilities, land use, and compatibility with surrounding land uses and the environment.
County staff is an interesting one.
That's the additional appraisers.
Additional inspectors,
and
additional
inspectors
deputies. Yeah.
Until the lag is caught up.
Brian, do you remember the conversation that we had with Steve Millman gives me this spring, does this fit what he was talking about?
That's what this is designed to do,
Okay.
is to improve the process so it's clearly articulates what the statutory authority is. It follows 67, 65, 12, and we have memorialized this development agreement process that makes it very clear that we are not attempting to just charge an impact fee without following the impact fee statute.
So the Idaho code that, is it 67, 65, 12, or is it 31, 601 and 604?
31601 and 31604 is just the general powers of the county to enter into contracts and
Okay.
negotiate contracts.
I'm gonna look these up tonight.
67, 65, 12, that's in the Local Land Use Planning Act that outlines the, how many were there, Cinda? 10 or 12?
8.
Eight different areas that authorizes the county to require a developer to make certain improvements to services.
And really, this is what we should have used when we were working with Perpetua. The requirements upon them for their station down here, that they were to work on road agreements, housing, something else. I don't remember what it was, but there were 3 things that we'd ask of them when we approved the station here on Warm Lake. Technically, this would have been the documents that we would have worked with
Well, we
them.
still can. They haven't completed their conditions of approval yet. I anticipate we'll do a development agreement with.
Yeah, I
For
was
the-
under the impression we still had that option.
For the on-site up at Stibnite. But we've already approved their station here on Warm Lake Road. I mean, how do we go back and enforce a development agreement now? We've already
Well, the minute
approved.
they want to do anything
Sure.
Stibnite, then we enter into this. We'll be covered.
Well, and I
Yes,
think
sir.
that's really, she brings up a great point, because then's when we need to talk about long-term bonding. Because now, I don't know if you guys read in the paper last week, but the mine that's north of Stibnite has just found a whole bunch of gold and monazite in their site. So I'm thinking this mine's gonna be going on for the rest of our lives, easily,
Probably our children's lives.
of their children's lives.
And it'll go away and then it'll come back. And
And then it'll go away and come back.
I think
the government
too,
takes it.
I think the foresight that Cinda has in developing this policy is that what you're going to see is with larger developments and larger developers, they're going to come in as part of their conditional use permit application with a proposal for a development agreement,
Oh,
which you have seen. So with a policy and an ordinance in place, we can kind of set the parameters for what we expect or want to see in those development agreements when a developer is putting together their application packet and presenting that to you for, well, it probably will be planning and zoning unless it's PUD, that will include a development agreement in that application packet as well. So we've got some sideboards for what we're looking for in a development agreement.
And, you know,
that would be an
Once-
interesting process to see what those end up coming in at.
Those are, it's really pretty common, actually,
Is it?
for developers to propose development agreements as part of their application packet. So it won't necessarily be generated by us originally.
I worked on the Garnet one, but I like that one, so I would like to prepare something like that as a model
Template.
template.
So
Well,
what I
and-
like about this is it gives Jeff good direction too, up front with planning and zoning. I mean, we need to make sure that the planning and zoning commissioners have everything they need and research for us before an approval or declination is made at that level. And then when it comes to us, we have a full packet and we can finalize the DA, but they've already had input into it.
Yes.
So in other words, you guys will do all the negotiating and kind of putting it all together, and then if that's approved by P and Z, we'll get that.
No, it'll be recommendations from the.
As a
PUD.
recommendation, right?
Yeah, it's under this procedure part.
Mhm.
I like that.
And I really like the part about the ADU, Cinda.
Mhm.
I think right now that's a good incentive for a single lot. Like we had here a few weeks ago with the gal up there, that it wasn't a lot split, it was just a second residence. And I think that would encourage that.
Right, and you said something about a waiver if they guarantee long-term rental.
I don't, that may have to go away someday because, maybe we have enough of them now, we don't, then we can start charging for them, but at this time, I think it's a good, kind of a incentivizer for people to think about doing that.
So, I mean, we could still come in with that particular one, but I'm gonna write the development agreement on that. Or
So-
whoever.
So back to the road department's role in this whole process is, from my perspective, the most valuable thing that the planning and zoning or this board could have in front of them is, once the proposed development is in the submission process or stages, the road development can say, here are the collector roads, and here are the condition of those collector roads and what the needs are for those roads, whether it's more culverts, wider rights of way, improved subbase, so we don't have crumbling asphalt or potholes, or maybe it's been 20 years since that road's been repaved. Nobody knows that information better than Jeff does. And so if he can prepare that information and supply it to whichever body is considering the development agreement, that'll help them kind of narrow down what's going to be effective. And
So Brian, then let me kind of go a little further with that. If a developer says, hey, we need to do a 3-inch overlay on this collector road, it's still got a good base, it just needs to be reskinned, and goes to Jeff and says, that's gonna cost $50,000, and you're gonna go, no, that's gonna cost $500,000. That's where I need your expertise to say that chunk of road is, you can't skin it for $50,000. We don't know that. So that's where your expertise is gonna have to come in, and then give that developer a chance to say, yeah, if you put on a 3-inch overlay on this road, that'll take care of your development agreement.
Would you expect them to do the entire $500,000 job, or just their proportionate share?
How many lots are there?
I don't know.
It depends on how big of the development it is.
I mean, that's been kind of
Yeah.
That's the bottom
a
line.
thorn in
It
our
has to be a
side is
proportionate share.
if the CIP dollars come in at, you owe us $325,000 for your 400 lots or whatever. Do we have to make them meet that exact dollar amount, or do we say, if you rebuild the road from point A to point B, and it's not $325,000, it's $250,000,
What's your thought process?
it's a thought process of getting a really bad chunk of road rebuilt that's,
You're gonna get that, but
It's
plus you're gonna
close.
get another $80,000 for the road that's beside it.
I think you need to get the full value, Jeff.
well, that's what we're trying to figure out is what's this full value? I mean, take the Patty Flat subdivision. I mean, he's down to 2 feet right away on the one side of the road, because it's 66-foot easement, not a 50-foot easement. I've got a bid from one of his guys to reline 3 huge culverts on Boulder Creek. Do we make him pay that exact $86,102.03? Or do we pick out some things here, you fix these, we'll be good?
That's an example of one of those that isn't going to have year-round access.
Right.
So that's where the negotiation comes in.
So that,
So you've got 3 culverts and that come in and he fixes $25,000 worth.
45.
Okay, so 45 is not the 86. You need some gravel on the road?
This is right away. But, well, that's what I mean. I mean, do we hold them to that exact dollar amount?
I don't think I don't think you have to look at it like you're $5 off. But I do think you have to look at it like, we're not just going to allow you to only do a portion of the mitigation because we don't see anything more. Because, I mean, right now, I'm just thinking Boulder Lake Road, we've talked about the fact we need more gravel up there. You know, I mean, so that's part of the mitigation of it. Even if he fixes the culvert, it's still a mud bath for most of the year. Some gravel
And
on
I
it,
look
and
at
maybe
it-
to finish it, we have to put another $25,000 into it as the county to make it a good road. That's an improvement for him to his subdivision, and he's gonna put all those costs right on that lot up there. He's not absorbing anything, remember that, as a developer, all they do is put it on the lot.
But my other thing is that if you're asking for $100,000 in a road development agreement and you settle for 50,000 in improvements and say, yeah, that's close enough, then the next guy's gonna do the same thing, and the next guy's gonna do, to me, okay, you did $50,000 worth of work, we need a check for 50,000 more.
We need it as close as possible.
Otherwise, you lose your credibility.
And the flip
Well,
side,
not-
and the flip side to that argument is that if you have an offsite improvement that's gonna require more than what their proportionate share is, then we're gonna have a broader discussion about, do we marshal resources and funds from the county to complete the project and pitch in, or how are we gonna negotiate those terms?
Because if it's only a 10 lot subdivision, there's, you know, you need enough money as if it was 100,000. I mean, you can't require them to do the extra $90,000 worth.
No, but you also have to have it in your budget.
Cannot and should not require them to pay more than their
Right, no,
proportionate share.
I agree.
So then you have a partially completed project. So then,
But do we know that their neighbor's gonna subdivide? We've already been talking to them. I mean, that's a whole thorough conversation. And, you know, where does it go and what are the other opportunities in that area? Cause we can land bank that, or we can bank those funds for a little while.
a little while. And that's where I think that taking this policy, jotting your thoughts down, coming back to the table, you know, kind of giving Cinda and myself and Jeff some direction on what you want in those kinds of scenarios so we can solidify that in the policy. And I really do recommend and think it would be worthwhile, once you have the policy adopted and in place, that we codify that in an ordinance. And then you've got, but we need to think through all of these things and make sure that we're precise in what that's going to be.
One thing that I'm always concerned with, and I think that the taxpayers, this has been their loudest voice, is we're absorbing the cost of development. I don't want to put on the existing taxpayers a cost for development in a certain area. The developer, whoever's doing it, should bear the cost, their proportionate share of that cost. I think we just have to be really careful, like the people at Patty Flat. Yeah, they don't have year-round access, but they know what their road is right now. So he develops those 10 lots, they show up next spring, and the road is absolutely destroyed because a developer did something that impacted them. And I don't think that that's fair to our existing taxpayer. So my expectation would be, is that if he does something to the road to create degradation for those that are already living there, then we would either need to hold him accountable for his share and try and figure out in our budget if we complete the project, or is there another opportunity coming down the road where something might be developed in the next year or two? But we're gonna have to look at the existing people that live there and say, this is why we didn't hold them accountable to this. I feel every day for the people that are out there on Jack's Road that that developer was required to do something, but all the existing landowners are impacted every day because of the dust from the road that wasn't taken care of to start with. And so we have to think about that.
Right.
What's
Well,
the
and I
impact
think
of
a
the
lot of
existing
that,
people?
to me, it comes down to, if you have a stretch of road, it's, you know, an average road in Valley County, and the end of it, somebody develops a whole bunch, 10 lots, 20 lots, whatever. They've got to fix this from the beginning out, as far as until they run out of money. It doesn't mean they get to pay right in front of their development and leave this a mess. To me, that doesn't make sense either.
Right, but you say until they run out of money, but they shouldn't be required to pay from the beginning to the end for 10 lots.
Well, it depends on how
much?
much that is, how long the road is, and all that stuff.
From the beginning of Wagon Wheel to the end of Wagon Wheel, that would be miles and miles
Oh,
of
yeah.
road.
Sure.
That's,
And we're not gonna do that, but
I think the vision that is coming into focus is that every one of these is going to be different,
Yep.
site-specific. It's gonna require a fair amount of upfront work to kind of flush these issues out and get what we feel is a fair and appropriate agreement. That we can't just say, well, 10 lots, this much money. It's gonna be much more involved than that.
and in a response to that, Jeff, you may have to look at some of these places for your next year's plan, knowing what development is happening, what their responsibilities and requirements are, and how does the county then meet, some of those obligations from past history where we've had gravel roads and now they're being impacted every single day on that road.
I think that's a critically important point, and I've just restated to emphasize it, that this has the potential, probably the reality of dictating the resources of the road department and sets the priorities for the road department in the coming year or years, depending on the development agreement. So Jeff's gonna have to be really involved and on the ball in these discussions, so he doesn't
Absolutely.
get his department overextended with, we're committed to this project, that project, and now we've got a new project coming up here.
Agreed, and we need to do the same thing. I mean, it's a history lesson a little bit for all of us every time we have one of these, especially a large subdivision to look at. We're gonna have to go back and see what those mitigating impacts are and how it's impacting the existing landowners. And that is a big conversation. The one that I regret the most is the one that's out there off Lake Fork or whatever it is, just north of where Gary Swain developed. And there's a patch of dirt, and then we made them, or there was like 10 1-acre lots out there, or there's Cody's subdivision on that road. So we impacted all the surrounding people with a gravel road, wasn't acres.
Is that the one where the guy built the road to the developer? That has that, not Dalrymple, who's the guy out there that has the road construction stuff, that built the road? Is that what she's talking about?
No,
Cody Draper.
Yeah, he subdivided a parcel off of Pleasant Acres, which is behind Coastline back in there.
Okay.
And
Oh.
Swain's
Yeah.
excavation back there.
we talked,
Oh,
this
is
was
that back
before
there
the
too?
development agreement stuff, and I said, you know what? It'd be nice if you were nice to your neighbors and just paved from the highway to the entrance into your, well, now he's back talking about paving it because their Ferraris and their Corvettes and stuff are getting dirty driving home.
Again, he could have put it on the back of the, you put it on the lot.
Right.
So you add, if you're only paving that much, you add $25,000 to a lot for
Right.
somebody that can afford that. It doesn't matter to them. They're paying cash for it.
That
So-
would be an example of, if, were there 10 lots? Does it say there were 10 lots? Would he be required to pave clear back to the highway? That would be,
Is there any other development that's gonna happen, or is he the last lot that's being subdivided?
Nobody knows when Farmer Joe's gonna subdivide.
Okay, well, we don't have any way of knowing that. But if that's part of the negotiation.
I've seen this done in some other counties where exactly what you're talking about happens, and the development agreement for the subsequent development, the one that comes later, some of those requirements can be credits back to the original developer.
Idaho Power does it all the time.
but they'll wait till one day after that latecomers agreement is over and then do their development.
You know what? And there's no way to control that.
Idaho Power, people do that with Idaho Power too.
So though there's
I've paid a lot of
kind of
latecomer fees.
there's a model out there that's required by other counties in situations like that. But
And that scenario too, Cinda, if that happened and we saw that, then there's other mitigating factors that they would be required to pay. So, I mean, it's like, you gotta make it equitable for both. And if somebody's gonna be that dishonest to the person in back of them that already created that, you just put some other requirements on them that might be more expensive. So,
No,
there's
but
two can play that
theoretically,
game
if
pretty
you had a-
easily.
if you had a road levy, those new lots that came online in this kid's development would have been enough revenue off that value to pay for the county, to give the road department to pay from there out to the highway. Theoretically, that's how it's supposed to work. But we don't have the levy for roads, so we don't have that option. Yeah, Cindy, the other one I wanted to ask you about, and took me a while to find it, but it's under your procedure. It's about the fifth one down. It says, at the request of the applicant, a development agreement can be presented to the Board of County Commissioners consecutively with the process of the development permit. What was
Right.
your thinking there?
My thinking there, is they can, if the subdivision that goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, then they can start working on their development agreement with the Board of County Commissioners at the same time that they're doing that, if they want to start construction at the end of their 10-day appeal period. I mean, if they want, to expedite this, they don't
Oh, I
have to
see,
wait
as a
until
way to-
after the 10-day appeal period and then start processing the development agreement, because we're gonna consume the whole summer. So they
So,
can start the process with the
So it's a
development
matter of
agreement.
just speeding up the process for the developer.
would we, in that scenario, already have the terms set by Planning and Zoning Commission? We would always,
They're gonna all mostly be the same. And the P and
we
Z
just
would
talked
be-
about 50 million different things that
The
would
P
not
and
be the
Z
same.
would be, making their recommendation. The development agreement isn't going to be finalized until after that decision is made. But they can start the process, so we can start getting the board's thoughts also. And
So if we came back and said, no, we don't like your development agreement, P and Z, we want more money, or we
Say that
want
one more
this or
time.
that, then is that where the process slows down? Is that where it gets messed up, or?
where it would be slow is after the P and Z Commission's 10-day appeal period from the P and Z Commission. And then, if we're gonna
Oh.
wait for that, then, then we have to write it. And then we have to get it in front of you for,
Yeah,
negotiation. So if they can start that whole thing up front,
Is there any,
Hmm.
is there any thought, though, that makes a statement that this is going to be approved by us? I mean, if the planning and zoning has not made, or they have made their decision, correct? So we already know if it's recommended for approval or denial, or if it has been approved and denied.
well, they're doing land use. You guys are doing mostly, say, the roads on just some simple subdivision. What the P and Z is going to decide isn't anything based upon that road.
Is there any impression that we have approved it because we're negotiating on a development agreement? I have to work through a few of these maybe
Well,
and just see. 'Cause
that's what
that's-
well, they don't get a final plat, and there's a 10-day appeal, and then they have so much time to put all this stuff together, and then before they get final plat, before they can even start developing.
Right, but one
Yeah.
of the things here is that they can't start work on it until after they have the development agreement recorded. So if they have to wait to start their site grading and stormwater management construction until after the development agreement is recorded, then they have the P and Z process, and then we have to have time to get in front of the board and go through all of those negotiations and finalize those plans. That's another month. And so now it's,
I don't want to have what happened to
So it's
Gamut.
fine.
Gamut was way ahead of us on that.
Well, and I think you're gonna see more and more of those where they're gonna use a development agreement as part of their application packet to acknowledge that that's gonna be they expect that to be one of the requirements of approval. And two, they're showing that they're willing to, but when they get to take the first step at drafting it, they get to kind of guide the conversation, which is why I think it's good to have this policy in place. It's good to have the ordinance in place to help bring it back to center to make sure we accomplish what we want out of the whole thing. But if I'm tracking this correctly, if I'm envisioning the procedural steps that's going to be required is that an application is going to go in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission with either a draft proposed development agreement or just the concept of one. I would expect to see coming out of the Planning and Zoning Commission a condition of approval that the developer negotiates and completes a development agreement with the Board of County Commissioners before work is started on the plat that has been approved by Planning and Zoning. Is that a fair?
That's in here.
That's a fair statement?
Yes, that's in here. It says, no work can be done on site until the development agreement is recorded with the Valley County.
So Planning and Zoning will require a development agreement as part of their condition of approval, but then that'll trigger the process to come in front of this board to negotiate the details and the terms of that, what's going to be in that development agreement.
But what this bullet point does is allows them to work the planning and zoning and the board simultaneously.
They don't have to wait until
So they don't have to wait for a development agreement. But you wouldn't finalize the development agreement until the P and Z has made their approval.
final approval.
Right.
I guess I just don't want 10 of them coming in every week saying, hey, there's more work on our development agreement. We're still in process. And, I don't know if that'll happen, but
It just allows them to get started before that 10-day appeal period is over.
So the only
you guys
stumble
keep going.
there, and Garnet Valley would be the perfect example. We overrode what the plan or the P and Z said. And so they would maybe not have started it, maybe would have, or how would that have worked in that process? I mean, I want the general public to know we're not rubber stamping these things. We're not going to be working on something when this decision hasn't been made. If this decision has been made, it only takes a week to get on our schedule. I mean, our agendas are not that full. So I'm confused on why you're saying it's going to take a month. What am I missing, Cinda?
Creation of it. I mean, if they're going to, I guess we could just start writing it beforehand.
Well, if it's going to be a part, I
I'm trying to
agree
think of
with,
that.
okay. Well, I agree with Oak in that, especially with a large development, that development agreement is already going to be in process and a major part of what planning and zoning is looking at anyway. They'll put some finishing touches to it and send it to us for an approval. Shouldn't slow down the process at all to wait. I just don't see a slowdown in the process.
So if somebody wanted to know what they are going to be required to do by the Board of County Commissioners for a development agreement, before they spend a lot of time putting together an application that might cost a couple $100,000. Okay, let's just use a simple one, a 10-lot subdivision. And before they spend the money on the engineering for Central District Health or the engineering for this or that, and they want to know what's going to be required in the development agreement.
So I can't answer that until my Planning and Zoning Commission is my research body. And so I don't want to say, yeah, we'll approve it with these conditions until my research body comes to me and said, these are the things that we found to be true. And then I can make a good decision.
I'm concerned that if you're going to make your Planning and Zoning Commission, the commission, your research body, that it will depend upon who the commissioners are. It will depend upon a lot of different things, and it could be, well, this is my friend over here, and I'm not saying P&Z would do that. It's not going to be a consistent process if they're the ones determining the level that a development agreement should be at.
So they're going to be the recommending body.
He's going to be the recommending body. They're going to be the body that requires it get done.
So you're saying you don't want the commissioners to have input on that DA. That's what I'm hearing you say. So they already, in my opinion, are our research body. They're supposed to be the experts. They're supposed to look at everything that
He's the
helps.
expert. Those P and Z commissioners, they don't know the value of a mile of road.
How can they make a good land decision if they don't listen to Jeff's input and take a look at that and go, this makes sense to put this number of residential lots in this location based upon the information that we've received from experts. Jeff's one of them. And so as part of their recommendations, yes, you're gonna have to final this development agreement with the commissioners, but they certainly should have input.
Well, I think that they'll have, I don't know that they should be determining the value of what each developer should be contributing.
And
It should be very consistent based upon what your road superintendent says.
And I would agree with that statement. But how does allowing a overlapping time frame really adjust? I mean, 10
You can
days
take
is
it out, it's fine.
Which one are you talking about?
same one.
The same one?
Is the fifth one down?
The,
Sixth,
Sixth?
yeah, we'll just take it out.
well, I know it's gonna stretch out the whole process, but they haven't even got a final plat yet. So I think there's still a lot of time in between for us to build a development agreement. Like you said, it's all gonna come down to what he's saying. If he's saying, hey, this is a brand new, we just paved this road last year, we don't need any development agreement, any money for this section, but we do for this section. P and Z's not gonna know that.
I know, I agree with you.
You know, or, hey, we're just gonna put this in the bank and use it someday to replace this bridge that's further on down the road.
I think the only thing that I, could just see muddying the waters here is creating any type of an impression that anything has been approved prior to that 14-day timeframe.
I'll just take
And
that.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah. I think 14 days in the overall scope of things, if you're a developer, that's nothing.
So if you have someone who's building, let's just say constructing a shop, mechanic shop, they're gonna want to know what their participation is before they spend a lot of time developing this application.
And I think, Cindy, that's going to be based upon a little bit of historical data. Well, in the past, the commissioners have required this for this type of an application. I mean, we are going through a phase right now that's almost an introductory phase to this. We're all going to be getting our feet wet a bit. But I think after that, I mean, I can't tell you right now what would be required. I think it's going to be site specific for a little while. And I think after that time, we can go back and say, well, this is kind of what the commissioners have looked at in the past. I don't know how to tell you what would be an answer to that prior to actually having it in front of me and making a decision based upon all the facts that I have.
Well, and to kind of muddy it even more, I think we really need the value parametrics and the CIP dollar figure. If we ever end up going to court, we can prove that, hey, we did our research. This is what we know is an impact from a single lot in this area.
I totally agree with that based upon just the P and Z making a determination of what's needed.
But I don't expect P and Z to come out and say it should be $1.657 million for an impact fee. No, that's not their job. Their job is to say, you need to go to the road supervisor, sit down with him and figure out what a development agreement is going to look like on a per lot basis or for the whole development or whatever it is. And so that they can kind of go, you know what? I don't want to do this. Never mind.
Well, and before they spend money, they have every opportunity to go and talk with Jeff. I mean,
This policy identifies Canada as the lead in
Right.
negotiating these development agreements as well. So that's a fundamental shift in what has been done prior to now too.
So, and you're okay with that?
It was his idea.
Yes, I am okay with that, as long as you're okay with that.
I don't
Between the
know that I am,
developer
I'm
and
not gonna lie.
staff. Staff includes the director, the road department director, deputy prosecutor. So it's all three of you guys. And I'm good with that. I think that's awesome. Because all of you, kind of have to work together.
We all have our place.
Yep. It's not just Cinda.
So, okay, but
She writes them up
our biggest complaint in other jurisdictions is that the elected officials are not held accountable because they're not making the decision. So how are we shifting?
I don't know, I've never cut that comment before. You're saying that we should be doing that?
So City of McCall, the only thing you hear is we have to talk to Annette. She's the county or city manager. She's not elected. She's making all the decisions.
Oh, yeah.
So the elected officials never have to be held accountable for their decisions. So in this scenario, you're doing the same thing. We're shifting our responsibility as an elected official to our staff.
We're just writing it up.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to have a starting point.
The-
That statement was just made though, that the responsibility is being shifted.
Well, so the original task to come
To
up with
write
the
it.
first draft, what used to be at the road department. Now it's being
Oh,
shifted
totally
over to
agree with
planning
that.
and zoning to be the lead. Jeff will play a supporting role. The development agreement cannot be finalized until an action item is put before you. You guys ultimately vote and change whatever proposal is presented to you to meet your expectations. So that's not gonna change. That
Okay.
can't change.
Now I understand.
Yeah.
Cinda, are you okay with this? Because we've talked about the fact your department's getting really buried. I mean, we talked about the fact that maybe Arnie was gonna be the new person, or if that's you or whoever it is, but I'm a little concerned with putting this on you.
Well, for now, this is just a policy for now. We're gonna start doing this. Hopefully, the applicant's legal counsel is gonna be writing them.
Okay.
That's,
That was my thought.
That's
Hey,
what
throw
we
this
would
back
really
on the
like.
applicant.
but we have to, I'm gonna come up with, the template.
Okay.
And there's,
based on that Garnet Valley, and hopefully they do it.
As we identify, Cindy and I talked about developing a form, an application form that would kind of flesh out some of the details on this. We can codify the policy in an ordinance and we get a few of these done. Then I think the process becomes a lot more efficient. And yes, fingers crossed, the applicant has the ability to take a first crack at drafting these up based on our requirements and the templates that we've created.
and honestly, my biggest, hardest thing for me in this is when I don't agree with him. I think you're not charging enough, but we're gonna have that, and that's okay. That's okay. That's just, because I need to have it in my head that you're getting everything you can, but you're not burning the guy.
Well, and that's where three heads are better than
Yeah,
one sometimes.
yeah.
You're not doing it on the fly and you're not doing it when you're moving too fast in another direction, so.
Well, perhaps in here, we should put something that says, if your engineer comes up with different costs or different valuations, that can be part of the decision.
A discussion.
Okay, let's say that happens. He comes out and your CIPs are twice as much as what they should be. Where do we go there?
That's up to you guys.
We have to go to court. We have to battle that data in, or we say, no, we're not gonna listen to you. We're gonna go with our number. I don't know where that's gonna go. I don't know if we should give them that option.
Well, that's part of your guys' negotiation. I mean, if their brother-in-law, is the contractor and he's not gonna charge them labor, I mean, I don't know, there's different scenarios.
I mean, we got these numbers to go off of, and I think
Right.
we need to stick to them.
Well,
I think this makes it something that's the same for everyone.
right, that is a valuable
Continuity.
resource that we've invested in the information there that's gonna help us. The risk of going to court is always gonna be there. You're never gonna put that down to zero. But the more we negotiate terms and we can identify what the clear nexus is to this development is gonna have this impact on these roads, and that's gonna cost X number of dollars, and we can codify that in a development agreement, and both parties agree to that, you've taken your risk way down. And that's the goal from my side of the table, from the legal perspective, is to minimize the risk and exposure to the county.
He's gonna describe, the road system in the general area. we're gonna apply those numbers, but if, you know, they can prove different, that's part of the negotiation, the discussion, that we have given it, you know, thought.
And ultimately, you'd have to make the decision about what number to use, based on legal
You guys,
risk,
not us.
negotiation, all of that
Mhm.
information that's presented to you.
And as
So-
long as we're not seeing, I mean, that would be, to me, it'd be a one-off. You know, that would be the exception to the rule.
Yeah, we're not gonna see that a lot. On Gamut, what happened there? On Gamut, the one, the
Garnet?
road that was out, no, off of Spring Valley that the guy paid before we even, that's Jack's Loop.
No, you're
Timber
talking
Creek,
Yeah.
Timber Creek.
Oh,
That was
Timber
Creek subdivision.
So he just went in and started paving because everybody was there.
No, he went in and started putting sewer line in and doing all this work, and I didn't know anything was even going on till one of the residents called and said, hey, why is the road closed?
It's another one of the issues that we're gonna try to avoid with this process is that when the developer has got to tear up a road because they've got to extend a sewer or water line that's in that road, that is not part of this off-site road improvement. That is a standard, that is a standard repair that they have to do because of the development itself. So,
Good.
so it has to be further away, and that's a learning lesson that we don't want to repeat that.
Okay.
I mean, I could've, you're ripping this up, just like Sherry said, that's, the developer would have to repave that anyways. Well, learning lesson, you fix that, we're gonna shift your paving from Sisker to Old State Highway now. It was a.
And this is learning as we
I'm still
go.
learning, just
Yeah.
A year from now, 2 years from now, this is gonna be dialed and we're gonna be on and roll.
So it changes subject here just a little bit, since we're on road development agreements. Cindy, where are we on the Tamarack and the Jug Handle? Are we gonna send them a bill? I mean, the last I heard, they were waiting to hear something from us as far as the Tamarack.
That's where it's at right now. Jug Handle, came in here. It was left at, the clerk is going to search for things. For payments, right?
We've already done.
We already done that, and there is no
So
payment.
did you communicate that back to them?
Yes, we presented.
And then I guess the ball's in their court.
So then,
Before they come in here for a final plat, they'll give you a check.
And
So
at
do we-
Tamarack, we came up with, we know what they're doing. They're paving next spring down to where the apartments are,
The employee housing, yeah, they'll go from the,
or the
Mhm,
employee
mhm.
house.
and I've got
from the
deeds.
roundabout south,
They're giving us deeds for that right of way too, all along there, even where they're not platted.
so that, the Tamarack will take care of themselves. So all we're waiting for on Jug Handle is just for them to come in on the final plat for that.
That's
What
our-
was it,
that's-
6 lot or a
that's our
7 lot?
leverage.
This
On
is-
any future final plat, that is our leverage.
So we don't bill them. We
We
don't say,
could.
hey, you know, you owe this now.
Good, if you want us to bill them, we could bill them for that. But our leverage is further approval.
What do you think, Doug?
Want to bill them?
I don't know if I want to make a comment or not. All I can say is that on July 11th, I provided them all of the auditor certificates in chronological order that the clerk's office had. After you have had the opportunity to review and hear back from Cinda, we can reschedule with the commissioners for further discussion. That was July 11th, 2023, sent at 7:33 in the morning. Sent to Mrs. Pemberton, Mr. Milliman, Mr. David Carey.
I
Forward that
personally
to
would
the
not
check
want
for
to
the
send them a bill.
Forward that
What'd you
to
say?
you.
I don't
Yeah, I
want to
need
send
that,
them a
please.
bill. I think before
I
David comes
included
in,
you too.
does anything else, we make him pay it. But I think just to get a bill at this moment in time is kind of a kick. I mean, those guys they've been very supportive of this community, continue to be very supportive of this community. I think we need to work with them as a partner and not as an adversary. It's not adversarial right now. We don't need that money right now or anything specific. I think we need to maintain a good relationship with them. They've contributed to our community heavily.
And I feel that way about all of our developers, because they're the ones that are gonna be making these these improvements everywhere.
What is their plan for another plat?
They have 3 or 4 already.
They're in process now, they're trying to put it together, so we'll probably see some by spring,
We
maybe.
should.
Yeah, I was just wondering where we were in that process, because it's
It'll-
one of the things that keeps me awake.
They have different things going on right now. Some of them, have been extended because they have to be on sewer. Some of them, they've gone to septic system.
Right.
So we should be seeing something.
Okay.
Maybe, I heard that there might be concern with, getting a road grader or something in the Donley area. Maybe that's something, is in somebody's development agreement. Maybe the PUD going at Loomis and Old State. Maybe Tamarack, by the fire station, gives us a place to house, a grader, snowplow equipment, something. That could legitimately go into one of these development agreements.
Loomis and Old State is a good thought process.
Yeah, is that a big development, Loomis and State? Is that new?
I
Interesting.
haven't even reviewed the whole thing yet.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay, if we're
Storage
done,
units would
I
be-
think we'll,
The back of that storage unit is really where
There
it
you
would have
go.
been a great place to have it.
which storage unit?
The one that we approved south of Donley.
Oh, that one, yeah, yeah, that
Well,
would have been
If they
good.
come back and say, we don't want to, straighten up this intersection, then maybe that be part of a development agreement. I mean, that's the beauty of the flexibility of our performance-based ordinance.
You finally
Always
gave
have
me
to
a
get my little
reason I
plug in.
agree with.
Okay,
So next steps, everybody's going to just think about this. Give us your thoughts.
I think it
I
looks
think we
great.
just gave them to you. but-
I know, but, think about it. I mean, because you'll think about something. Oh, I don't. And then I'm thinking the first part of the year, we'll come back with this finalized and with a template.
So does that change anything that happens between now and the first of the year?
No, because I'm planning on doing it anyway.
Okay.
Well, I'm ready
We're
to
just
go
putting
whenever
it in
you are,
writing.
Cindy, but there'll be something that'll come up that we didn't catch or forgot or that, I think we need to put a line in the sand somewhere.
Well, and we need guidance. I mean, this policy is going to direct our process of how we're going to do. So we are more consistent in what we are doing. Another one that we're gonna do is motions for reconsideration. We're going to put together policies for.
Yeah, that
because
would be
It
great.
involves Oki, it involves me, it involves Doug, we need
We need to get on
Yep.
top of that one too.
It's amazing how the county has gotten so updated. It's cool, it's great to see, but there were things that I never thought we need to work on. All of a sudden, we got all these attorneys, it's like, we need to work on that. Never ends.
A lot of them, are silent processes. It's just how we've always processed everything. But we really do need to put it down so everybody understands what we're doing.
Our county is changing and we have people moving here that are gonna have a higher expectation than we've delivered in the past and we have to meet those expectations at some moment.
Already there, yeah, that's for
You are
sure.
Correct.
First snowstorm, we need
I was laughing on
What
Facebook.
do you
Yeah,
expect?
what do you expect?
I never see the good stuff on Facebook. Anyway, so let this percolate,
laughing.
if
Okay.
you have thoughts and things like that, and
We'll let you get it back on the agenda for approval.
first part of January.
Does planning and zoning, I mean, have they looked at it? Might put it in front of them and see if they have any recommendations too.
I'll hand them a copy Thursday and say, this is kind of where we're headed with this, and
They may have some good ideas.
Okay,
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
all you
everyone.
do. Mike's in here, so are we meeting in executive?
Commissioners, I don't have anything to go over, I just wanted to let you know.
Do we have
Thanks.
anything, Oak, that you need to discuss, an employee
Yeah, me.
situation?
Oh, Jeff, we just talk openly.
We talk about, we talk about you all the time. What are you talking about?
me.
take some chocolate, you guys.
We don't bother with executive sessions.
You don't have anything? Okay.
Yay.
Did you say this morning that you found somebody to do the inventory clerk?
I have a couple of applicants for it.
That's what I thought you said. Okay, but we haven't heard anybody yet. Just the mechanic. Okay,
Does he have experience at all? Not really?
Cindy, is there anybody out there, general public? You look for me, thank you.
Doug, I think we need to.
Okay. What you need?
Reprioritize those on the agenda. So if we're gonna put these executive sessions on as action items in case we do have one, we shouldn't, have the general public thinking they're gonna come in at 4:30. Why don't we put the general public before our last executive session?
Okay.
And that way, if we don't have one, we're done, and we're not holding the public out there. That makes sense to you?
Works for me. I know a lot of commissioners have it's the first thing after the pledge.
First thing, yeah.
This is general public, so whatever you guys want to do. So there being no more business on this day, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 3:41.